मानवी स्टार्ट करेंगे?
यस मैम।
So we are live on YouTube as well.
Okay, Rahul, thank you. Manvi, please start कर दे.
Yes. Namaskar and a very warm welcome to all the special guests present today. My name is Manvi Ajit Singh. After our three webinars on understanding various modes of tribal development, protecting their indigenous culture from external influence, I would like to introduce to our most important person who has started this, who is the main idea behind it, and he is Professor Vivek, sir. He is a professor in IIT Delhi and National Co-Coordinator in Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. I hand over to you, sir. Before we start, we have few housekeeping rules which needs to be followed. First, participants joining us on WebEx should not mute their mic until and unless asked for. Second, for the participants who are joining us through YouTube, may ask their question from the speakers by posting on YouTube chat box along with their names. Over to you, Professor Vivek Kumar. Thank you so much.
धन्यवाद मानवी। जनजातीय समाज के ऊपर होने वाले इस वेबिनार सीरीज जो उन्नत भारत अभियान ने प्रारंभ किया, एक सीरीज, इस कार्यक्रम में मैं पुनः आप लोगों का स्वागत करता हूं। आज हमारे बीच में हिमाचल प्रदेश के जनजातीय समाज से जुड़े हुए, उनके ऊपर अध्ययन करने वाले ऐसे 3 बड़े विद्वान हमारे बीच में उपस्थित है और उनका मार्गदर्शन हमें इस कार्यक्रम में आज मिलने वाला है। इससे पहले हम इस कार्यक्रम की एक फॉर्मल शुरुआत करें, मैं कुछ इस कार्यक्रम की भूमिका के बारे में कुछ 2 बातें कहना चाहता हूं। जैसा आप लोग सब जानते हैं कि उन्नत भारत अभियान एक शिक्षा मंत्रालय का एक फ्लैगशिप कार्यक्रम है, जिसमें देश भर के उच्च शिक्षण संस्थान गांव के साथ मिलकर गांव के लिए काम करते हैं और हर संस्थान को अपने साथ 5 गांवों का एक नेटवर्क बनाना पड़ता है। उन्नत भारत अभियान का एक बड़ा आयाम है कि हम किस तरह से कम्युनिटी पार्टिसिपेशन, लोगों की भागीदारी, जन भागीदारी, प्लानिंग में जन भागीदारी हो, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में और मॉनिटरिंग, इवैल्यूएशन, जो भी हमारे विकास की एक प्रक्रिया है उसमें संपूर्ण रूप से जन भागीदारी सुनिश्चित हो। और इसके लिए जो नॉलेज इंस्टीट्यूशंस है उनका योगदान रहे और उनकी जो योग्यता है, उनका जो अनुभव है, उसकी भी शेयरिंग हो। तो जब हम लोगों ने फील्ड में काम करना प्रारंभ किया तो ऐसा ध्यान में आया कि हमारे शिक्षण संस्थान और हमारे समाज का एक वर्ग जो तथाकथित अभिजात वर्ग है, उसका समाज के साथ बहुत जुड़ाव नहीं है। यदि हम सामाजिक संबंधों की बात करें, सांस्कृतिक नजरिए की बात करें, तो हमारे छात्र और हमारे बड़ी मात्रा में, बड़ी संख्या में हमारे शिक्षक वास्तव में देखें तो समाज का जो संरचना है उसके बारे में उनकी अनभिज्ञता रहती है। तो जब हमारे छात्र और शिक्षक गांव में गए, उन्होंने करना प्रारंभ किया, तो ये एक बड़ा गैप हम लोगों को समझ में आया और बहुत सारे ओरिएंटेशन प्रोग्राम्स के बाद भी हमें ये समझ में आया कि चूंकि हमारे छात्रों और शिक्षकों को समाज की जो आप कह सकते हैं कि सोशियोलॉजी या कल्चरल प्रैक्टिसेस और उन सब के बारे में जानकारी ना होने की वजह से एक काम करने में एक थोड़ी दिक्कतें आती हैं। तब ये विचार किया गया कि हम यदि साधारण समाज की बात करें, तब जब ये दिक्कतें हैं, तो यदि हम जनजातीय समाज के बीच में काम करना चाहते हैं तो ये दिक्कतें और बढ़ जाती हैं, क्योंकि जनजातीय समाज के बारे में तो एक कहना चाहिए, क्योंकि देश भर में जितनी जनजातियां हैं और जिस तरह से हम लोग जनजातीय समाज के बारे में पढ़ते लिखते हैं, वो समझ बहुत कम है उस समाज के बारे में। तब ये विचार हुआ कि क्यों ना हम देश भर के जनजातीय समाज के सामाजिक ताने बाने के बारे में अपने उन्नत भारत अभियान के संस्थानों के साथ चर्चा करें। और ये तय हुआ कि अलग अलग, चूंकि अलग अलग क्षेत्र में अलग अलग जनजातियां रहती हैं, अलग अलग उनकी सामाजिक और सांस्कृतिक प्रैक्टिसेस हैं, तो अलग अलग क्षेत्रों के हिसाब से ही हम लोगों ने इस वेबिनार को का आयोजन प्रारंभ किया। तो प्रारंभ में हमारे जो पहली 3 वेबिनार, इस सीरीज के जो 3 वेबिनार हुए, वो उसमें हमने झारखंड और उत्तर पूर्व इन 3 क्षेत्रों को हम लोगों ने फोकस किया। आज हमारे बीच में हम लोग हिमाचल का जो हमारा जनजातीय समाज है उसके बारे में बात करेंगे। उसके लिए हमारे बीच में 3 प्रमुख हमारे वक्ता उपस्थित हैं। हमारे बीच में डायरेक्टर ऑफ इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ ट्राइबल स्टडीज, हिमाचल प्रदेश यूनिवर्सिटी, चंद्रमोहन जी, प्रोफेसर चंद्रमोहन जी हमारे बीच में उपस्थित हैं। हमारे बीच में प्रोफेसर अपर्णा नेगी हैं, जो कि हिमाचल प्रदेश यूनिवर्सिटी में सीनियर प्रोफेसर हैं। और समाज के बीच में काम करने वाले हिमालय परिवार से हमारे बीच में डॉक्टर विशाल निहारिया ये उपस्थित है। अब मैं आमंत्रित करता हूं प्रोफेसर प्रियंका कौशल को कि वो संक्षिप्त में उन्नत भारत अभियान की भूमिका के बारे में बताएं और इस कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाएं। प्रोफेसर प्रियंका कौशल।
जी, धन्यवाद सर। जैसा कि आपने बताया, संक्षिप्त में मैं भी कोशिश करूंगी कि मैं अपनी वक्तव्य रख पाऊं कि उन्नत भारत अभियान एक नेटवर्क है जिसमें करीब, ये शुरुआत हमने की थी इसकी 2015 में अनाउंसमेंट हुआ, प्रोग्राम हुआ, पर रियल एक्शन जिसे हम कहते हैं, हम फील्ड में उतरे, हमने काम करना शुरू किया। स्टार्टेड विद IIT दिल्ली ओनली, सिर्फ एक इंस्टीट्यूशन था, लेकिन ये चीज़ शुरुआत से ही थी कि हमें एक नेटवर्क बनाना पड़ेगा, सबके साथ मिलजुल के काम करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि हम नॉलेज कंट्रीब्यूशन की बात कर रहे थे फॉर रूरल डेवलपमेंट। तो 2015 में उन्नत भारत अभियान स्टार्ट हुआ, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एजुकेशन ने इसे लॉन्च किया और 2016 से लगभग हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं। और आज मुझे ये बताते हुए बहुत खुशी हो रही है कि हम लोग करीब 2700 इंस्टीट्यूशंस, हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूट्स हमारे साथ काम कर रहे हैं। 2700 हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूट हमारे साथ काम कर रहे हैं, जिसमें लगभग हम 14,000 से ज़्यादा गांव में हमारा फुटप्रिंट है। और इंटरवेंशंस की अगर हम बात करें तो हम बहुत सारे एरियाज पे काम करते हैं, और ये एरियाज एनर्जी सेक्टर है, वाटर है, पानी पर हैं हम लोग, और सॉलिड वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट है, सस्टेनेबल एग्रीकल्चर है, स्कूल एजुकेशन है, स्किल डेवलपमेंट है। तो इन सारे एरियाज में हम काम करते हैं। और एक हमारा सब्जेक्ट एरिया है जिसे हम अदर्स कहते हैं, और अदर्स की कैटेगरी में हर वो चीज़ जो इन 12 सब्जेक्ट में कवर नहीं होती है उसे हम अदर्स में डाल के काम कर सकते हैं। और अदर्स की अगर हम आपको बात करें तो इट इज़ अ वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस, एंड एज वी मूव अलोंग वी लर्न। शुरुआत में हमने सिर्फ 12 सब्जेक्ट पे काम करना शुरू किया, फिर एक ऐसी ही मीटिंग जैसे हम आज कर रहे हैं, वहाँ एक सजेशन आया, पंजाब से हमारे पास सजेशन आया कि लोग ज़्यादातर जो हमारे सब्जेक्ट एरियाज हैं वहाँ वो उनकी उस वक्त की डिमांड नहीं थी। वाटर की अगर हम बात करें, एनर्जी की बात करें, तो पंजाब काफ़ी फला फूला स्टेट है, पर उनके यहाँ जो प्रॉब्लम आ रही थी, उन्होंने हमसे बात करते हुए कहा कि हमारे यहाँ जो इशू है वो ऐसा है कि हमारा यूथ बहुत ज़्यादा ड्रग में इन्वॉल्व है, तो कैन वी डू समथिंग फॉर इट। क्या हम, कोई एक लीगल कॉलेज था, एक लॉ कॉलेज था। देन दिस आइडिया केम कि लेट्स ब्रिंग एन अदर टॉपिक जिसके कि जो ऐसी फेल्ट नीड वाली एरियाज हैं, सब्जेक्ट्स हैं, उसे भी हम इनकॉर्पोरेट कर पाएं। तो दैट्स हाउ अदर्स करके कैटेगरी हमारी बनी, और इस तरह से हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। तो आज जैसे हमने आपको बताया कि लगभग 2700 इंस्टीट्यूट हमारे पास हैं, लगभग 14,000 से ज़्यादा गाँव में हम काम कर रहे हैं। और कोविड टाइम पे भी अगर हम बात करें कि पैंडेमिक चल रहा है, पर उसके बावजूद भी काफ़ी अच्छा काम हमारे इंस्टीट्यूट कर रहे हैं, स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम सैनिटाइजर मेकिंग, मास्क मेकिंग, और इसे सिर्फ मेकिंग तक ही हमने लिमिटेड नहीं रखा है, हमने इससे लाइवलीहुड भी जोड़ा है कि जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस जिनके पास ये फैसिलिटीज़ हमने प्रोवाइड कराई, जो कि हमारे पार्टिसिपेटिंग इंस्टीट्यूट हैं, हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूट्स हैं आपकी तरह, इन सबके थ्रू लाइवलीहुड के साथ भी जोड़ा। और एक बहुत प्रयास रहता है हमारा कि जो भी इंटरवेंशन हम कर रहे हैं, कितना ही छोटा क्यों ना हो, वो सस्टेनेबल रहे, वो अपने आप को स्वावलंबी कर सके, आगे बढ़ सके। तो ये हमारे बहुत कोर में रहता है, और हम ज्यादातर काम करते हैं फेल्ट नीड के अक्रॉस, कि जो कम्युनिटी फील कर रही है कि हमें इसकी जरूरत है। नॉट दैट इट्स नॉट टॉप डाउन अप्रोच, जिसमें कि मैं अगर बात करूं तो मेरी अगर थोड़ा बहुत जो भी मुझे आता है, अगर एनर्जी के फील्ड में आता है, तो ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं जाके वहाँ एनर्जी का कुछ काम करूं जो कि शायद मेरे लिए कंफर्टेबल होगा, मेरा एक कंफर्ट जोन है, वहाँ पे डोमेन है। लेकिन अगर मैं गांव वालों से बात करती हूँ या उन लोग कम्युनिटी से बात करती हूँ और उनकी जरूरत अगर पोर्टेबल ड्रिंकिंग वाटर है या सेफ ड्रिंकिंग वाटर है, तो वो शायद मेरी एक्सपर्टीज नहीं है। तो इन दैट केस कन्वर्जेंस को हम बहुत प्रमोट करते हैं कि आप जो इस एरिया में काम कर रहे हैं, आप उनके साथ मिलजुल के एक सोल्यूशन डिजाइन कीजिए। नॉट जस्ट डिजाइनिंग ऑफ सोल्यूशन, फॉर एग्जाम्पल लोग कहते हैं भाई वाटर, ड्रिंकिंग वाटर प्रोवाइड करने का एक जो बहुत पॉपुलर तरीका आजकल चल रहा है वो आरओ वाटर सिस्टम है। तो आरओ वाटर सिस्टम की मेंटेनेंस भी होती है, आप एक बार जाके कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट करके आप एक आरओ वाटर प्लांट लगा देते हैं, लेकिन उसके बाद उसकी मेंटेनेंस है, तो उसका जो ऑपरेशन कॉस्ट है वो कैसे निकलेगा, ताकि ये वन टाइम एक्टिविटी ना हो। अगर मान लीजिए कोई एक पार्ट अगर टूट जाता है तो उसे कौन रिपेयर कराएगा, राइट? तो वो पूरा का पूरा वैल्यू चेन बनाने पे, ताकि आपकी प्लानिंग थोड़ी सी ब्रॉड हो, जिससे कि कम्युनिटी अगर एक हम रिसोर्स अगर इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं इन टर्म्स ऑफ टाइम, इन टर्म्स ऑफ मनी, तो उसका वैल्यू एडिशन जितना ज्यादा हो सके, गुड फॉर अस। रिसेंटली अभी जो हमने दो डेवलपमेंट हुआ जो मैं आप शेयर करना चाहूंगी। हमने CSIR जो कि साइंस एंड इंडस्ट्रियल रिसर्च पे काम करता है, और उनका एक रूरल डिवीजन भी है जिसमें कोई बहुत छोटी छोटी टेक्नोलॉजीज डेवलप करते हैं, जिसके थ्रू वैल्यू एडिशन करते हैं। वो जिंजर हो गया, उसकी सेल्फ लाइफ बढ़ाने की बात हो गई, पॉटरी हो गई, तो छोटे छोटे टेक्निकल इंटरवेंशन जिसके थ्रू कि हम आर्टिजन्स को, फार्मर्स को, उनका जो भी प्रोड्यूस है उसको उससे हम ड्रजरी रिमूव कर सके। टेक्निकल इंटरवेंशन लाइक नए डिजाइन का अगर हम चरखा बना पाए, एक नई डिजाइन का अगर हम चाक बना पाए, तो इन चीजों पे काम करते हैं। उनके साथ हमने MOU साइन किया है, तो वो टेक्नोलॉजीज अवेलेबल हैं, हम फैसिलिटेट करा सकते हैं उस चीज को। NIT हमीरपुर करा सकता है। ये सब हमारे पार्टनर हैं इस पूरे उन्नत भारत अभियान में। दूसरा अगर हम बात करें तो ट्राइफेड जैसे हम सबको पता है कि वो ट्राइबल प्रोड्यूस को मार्केट करते हैं, एंड दे आर वेरी वेरी एक्टिवली वर्किंग विद अस। उनका बहुत ज्यादा जोर है कि जो ट्राइबल एरियाज हैं उनका जो भी प्रोड्यूस हमारे पास आ रहा है उसे हम मार्केट तक लेके जा सके। टेक्नोलॉजिकल इंटरवेंशन, हर तरीके से वो हमारी हैंड होल्डिंग करने को तैयार हैं। तो जैसे मैंने बताया, ट्राइफेड हमारे साथ है, CSIR हमारे साथ है, ऐसे एक दूसरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, वो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो सोसाइटल बेनिफिट के लिए काम कर रही है, उनके साथ हम कोलैबोरेट करते हैं, उनको हम अपने साथ लेके आगे बढ़ने की कोशिश करते हैं। तो इट लाइक आई सेड, इट्स अ वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस एंड इट्स इज गोइंग ऑन। अबाउट ट्राइबल कम्युनिटीज, लाइक आई सेड, मैं तो हम अगर बात करें सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट की, तो आई ऑफन से कि दिस इज वन कम्युनिटी that has truly been sustainable right from the very beginning. अगर हम कम्युनिटी की बात करें तो एक अकेली कम्युनिटी है जो अपने आप में सेल्फ सफिशिएंट है। उन्हें जितना उनकी दरकार है, जितनी उनकी ज़रूरतें हैं, उससे वो विद इन देयर ओन पेरिफेरी दे ट्राई टू मीट इट। तो उनका डिपेंडेंस ऑन एक्सटर्नल वर्ल्ड इज वेरी लिमिटेड, and that is something all of us need to learn. There is a big lesson that we all can learn, और अगर हम उनसे सीखते हैं और जो कुछ एक एडवांसमेंट अगर हमारे पास है, if we two can just come together, then nothing could be as good as that. So this is very important कि हम we learn the entire sustainable development practices from them and try to superimpose it on whatever we are doing in so-called not in the tribal communities, right? So इसी डायरेक्शन में, इसी को आगे ले जाने की एक कोशिश है जो आज हम लोग इस वेबिनार के थ्रू आगे ले जाने की कोशिश करेंगे। So with these words, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka ji. Now, I introduce Professor Ajay Saini. Professor Ajay Saini is a professor in CRDT, IIT Delhi. He is the moderator for this webinar. Hand over to you, Ajay ji.
Thank you, Mitaji. Good morning. Welcome to this webinar, fourth in the series. So we have three speakers today, Professor Chandra Mohan Parshera, Professor Aparna Negi, and Dr. Vishal Neheria. I'll briefly introduce our first speaker, Professor Chandra Mohan Parshera. Professor Parshera has a PhD in tourism from Himachal Pradesh University. He's a professor at the same university in tourism department. He also directs the Institute of Tribal Studies at Himachal Pradesh University, and his research interests gravitate towards tourism and indigenous people of Himachal Pradesh. Professor Parshera has authored several books and research papers, and in the last 5 years, he has been working on and trying to trace out the historical significance of River Chenab. And he's also currently working on a dictionary of tribal dialects of Himachal Pradesh. So in this webinar, Professor Parshera will discuss or talk about the indigenous people of Himachal Pradesh, their culture, history. So I welcome Professor Parshera to this webinar. So he will have a 20-minute talk, which would be followed by a 10-minute Q&A session. So over to you, Professor Parshera.
Thank you very much, Ajay ji. And thank you very much to the entire team of organizers and Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. While going through or listening very carefully to Professor Vivek ji when he was introducing this concept, so I thought to change two things. One, my language, and another, the few things which I had prepared for this session. जहां तक हम लोग ये जो टॉपिक आज का है, अंडरस्टैंडिंग वेरियस मोड्स ऑफ ट्राइबल डेवलपमेंट, प्रोटेक्टिंग देयर इंडिजिनस कल्चर फ्रॉम एक्सटर्नल इन्फ्लुएंस, तो मैंने तय किया कि हिंदी को भी मैं इसमें बीच में जोड़ूंगा. तो इंडिजिनस लोगों का या ट्राइबल लोगों का या आदिवासियों का, उनके कल्चर को एक्सटर्नल इन्फ्लुएंस से किस तरह से वहां के लोगों ने बचाया और किस तरीके का डेवलपमेंट का पैटर्न रहा. तो 20 मिनट्स आई फील इज नॉट ए वेरी गुड space of time to discuss all the historical and the cultural aspects of entire region of Himachal Pradesh, wheresoever tribal communities are residing. So I'm coming to a center point, or we can say that I try to focus my few of the things which I wish to share with you on a district लाहौल स्पीति. तो ये जो लाहौल स्पीति है, ये हिमाचल का एक जनजातीय जिला है और क्षेत्रफल के हिसाब से 24% से ज्यादा पूरे प्रदेश का जो हिस्सा है, जमीनी हिस्सा, वो इस जिला में है. अगर हम लोग यहाँ के इतिहास की बात करें लाहौल स्पीति की, तो बहुत सारी चीजें हम लोगों के ध्यान में आती हैं. अलग अलग लोगों की किताबें, अलग अलग इतिहासकार. तो किसी ने कहा कि ये, जो कि एक फैक्ट भी है, कि लाहौल और स्पीति दोनों तिब्बत के गुगे प्रांत के साथ में जुड़े रहे, उनका आधिपत्य रहा. और उसके बाद किसी ने कहा कि यहाँ पर मंगोल शासकों ने यहाँ पर आक्रमण किया, The Mongolians, they invaded Lahaul and Spiti, Lahaul as well as Spiti also, the both parts of the district. And then further, we all know about the British Empire, and then all the development, that historical background of the development which took place during these 75 years of time. तो उससे भी पहले जहां तक प्रोफेसर विवेक जी ने कहा, तो मैं पॉइंट लेके अगर मैं चलूं इस लाहौल स्पीति के विषय में, तो मुझे एक चीज ध्यान में आती है। एक विद्वान हुए विलियम कार्टराइट करके, तो कैटोग्राफी एंड आर्ट ये पुस्तक उन्होंने लिखी है। इन हिज बुक, जो विलियम कार्टराइट हैं, ये ही community or the society of Lahore, and he says that these might be people participated in the Great War. तो विलियम कार्टराइट कहता है कि यहाँ के लोगों ने महाभारत के युद्ध में भाग लिया हो सकता है। उसके बाद में एक और ग्रंथ आता है कृष्णकांत द्वारा लिखित, उसमें ये कहा गया कि चंद्रभागा संगम जो वैदिक नदी है लाहौल स्पीति में बहती है, यहीं से आरंभ होती है। तो चंद्रभागा संगम वो स्थान है जहां पर द्रौपदी का देहावसान हुआ, और यहाँ के लोगों ने द्रौपदी के मृतदेह का अंतिम संस्कार किया, उसके साथ में माता और पुत्र का संबंध स्थापित किया, और उस दिन से इस नदी पर अस्थि विसर्जन की परंपरा आरंभ हुई। यानी लगभग 5000 साल पहले इस नदी पर द्रौपदी के दाह संस्कार के साथ में अस्थि विसर्जन की परंपरा आरंभ हुई। उसके बाद में अगर हम लोग थोड़ा सा और इतिहास के साथ में ढूंढें, तो ऋग्वेद के नदी सूक्त में इस नदी का उल्लेख है, चंद्रभागा संगम, which flows just inside of the valley of Lahore, and further it goes to Pakistan through Kishtwar and all those places of eastern Punjab. तो मुझे ये लगता है कि अगर हम लोग इस ट्राइबल कम्युनिटी का, जो लाहौर की जो ट्राइबल कम्युनिटी है, इसकी डेवलपमेंट की बात करें, तो मैं वापिस आऊंगा संगम के ऊपर। डेवलपमेंट की बात करें तो यारकंद के लोगों ने यहाँ पर, यारकंद के लोग पहुंचे, शायद कोई चंगेज खान के समय के आसपास में लाहौल और स्पीति में भी यारकंद तक से लोग आए, और उसके बाद में यहाँ के लोगों ने यारकंद तक व्यापार किया। यानी इफ वी डू टॉक अबाउट द ट्रैवल डेवलपमेंट ऑफ दिस डिस्ट्रिक्ट which holds almost 24% of the total land area of Himachal Pradesh. So our forefathers, they moved back to Yarkand and much further to Yarkand. वो समरकंद तक गए, वो यारकंद गए, वो तिब्बत गए, और लद्दाख तो बिल्कुल नेबरिंग स्टेट रहा। तो इस सारे इलाकों में उन्होंने व्यापार किया, और भेड़ों के पीठ पर अपना सामान लेके जाना और वहां से वापस कुछ चीजें लेके आना, गांव-गांव में जाकर उसको बेचना, उस तरीके से जिंदगी को बसर किया। उसके बाद में lot many of people from this small district, tribal district of Lahaul Spiti, especially from the Lahaul area, they moved down as laborers to work in different areas of the life, up till Jalandhar and Amritsar and Lahore, and then they very less people to Lahore. Majority of them have moved down to Jalandhar, and a couple of them have stayed in Kullu Valley, and then couple of them have moved to Mandi district. इन सारे जगहों पर जाके उन्होंने कामगारों का काम किया। और उसके बाद में इस ट्राइबल डेवलपमेंट की श्रृंखला में अगर हम लोग तीसरी बात करें, तो फिर हम लोग गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉयमेंट की बात करेंगे आजादी के बाद। तो यहाँ के लोगों ने अपने लंबे लंबे बाल रखते थे उन दिनों, तो अपनी चोटियों को छत पर किसी कील के साथ बांध के रात रात भर अध्ययन में तपस्या की, कि कहीं उनको नींद आती थी तो एकदम से वो चोटी खींचती थी। ऐसे करके यहाँ के लोग, जिसे हम लोग, एक लकड़ी होती है जिसमें मोम लगा होता है, उसकी लकड़ी की आंच में या उसकी रोशनी में, क्योंकि लालटेन भी बहुत लेट आया, और बिजली तो बहुत देर बाद आई। तो उसकी लकड़ी जलाकर उसकी आंच में लोगों ने किताबों को देखकर अपनी आंखें खराब कर करके उन्होंने अध्ययन किया, और बहुत सारे पूरे देश के भिन्न भिन्न स्थानों में यहाँ के लोग गए और सरकारी सेवाओं में आज भी जितना भी ट्राइबल एरिया हमारा है, चाहे वो किन्नौर का एरिया है, चाहे वो लाहौल स्पीति का एरिया है, चाहे वो पांगी का एरिया है, देश के भिन्न भिन्न स्थानों में यहाँ के लोगों ने सरकारी सेवाओं में अपना योगदान दिया। और उसके बाद में जब प्राइवेटाइजेशन की बात हुई तो फिर उस ओर भी यहाँ के लोग गए। उसके बाद में अगर हम लोग एक और श्रृंखला की बात करें, इस श्रृंखला में एक और कड़ी की बात करें, तो देन इट कम्स टू एग्रीकल्चर। आज लाहौल स्पीति का जो मटर है और जो गोभी है, वो देश के अंदर की बेहतरीन गोभी और बेहतरीन मटर में है। यहाँ के बहुत सारे, यहाँ का आलू, यहाँ के बीज का आलू पूरी दुनिया के बहुत सारे देशों में पहले सप्लाई होता था बीज का आलू। अब तो कम हो गया उसका दायरा, भारत के अंदर तो है ही है, लेकिन बाहर थोड़ा सा कम हो गया है। और इस तरह से एग्रीकल्चर वाज वन ऑफ द very wonderful strength for this community to develop and work with the outer side of the societies in the country. और ये यहाँ हम लोग अगर ब्रेक करें तो उसके बाद में इफ वी जंप फर्दर expecting one more aspect of the tribal development of this district, so then we look towards tourism. We all know that recently Atal Rohtang Tunnel was inaugurated by Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. 9 किलोमीटर की एक ऐसी खूबसूरत टनल जो लगभग 10,000 फुट की ऊंचाई पर पीर पंजाल को भेदती हुई लाहौल के घाटी में पहुंची, जिसके लिए हमारे बुजुर्गों ने, श्रीमान अर्जुन गोपाल जी ने, जो अटल जी के बाल सखा थे, बहुत बड़े विद्वान और मेरे गुरु, बहुत महान इतिहासकार श्री छिरिंग दुर्जे जी, अभयचंद राणा जी, ऐसे वहाँ के मूल जनजातीय लोगों ने, जो बहुत ही साधारण लोग थे, उन्होंने दिल्ली जा जाकर बहुत सारे प्रयासों के साथ में ये अटल रोहतांग टनल आज हम लोगों के सामने आ गई और दुनिया के लिए एक आकर्षण का केंद्र। ये कोविड जिसके बारे में भी बात हो रही थी, इस कोविड के समाप्त होने के बाद में दिस टनल इज गोइंग टू बी वन ऑफ द वंडरफुल डेस्टिनेशन और अट्रैक्शन in Indian tourism scenario. A lot of people would be very much keen. You could see in the future after 4-5 months, once this condition or the situation becomes normal to the back years, you will find thousands of people every day planning to visit to Rohtang Tunnel and further to Lahaul Spiti to see this wonderful masterpiece of architecture and design technique. And then further to see a hidden valley of Lahaul Spiti, which remained isolated because of the mighty Rohtang Pass and almost 6 months of snow-covered mountains, which used to make this place extremely inaccessible. तो टूरिज्म इस स्थान के लिए एक बड़ी चीज एक हो सकती है, होगी भी। वो इसके ट्राइबल डेवलपमेंट का एक अनदर एस्पेक्ट है। अब यदि हम ट्राइबल डेवलपमेंट के एस्पेक्ट को एग्रीकल्चर पर खत्म करें और फिर एक बार दोबारा वापस जाए, तो वो जो इन्वेजन और एक्सटर्नल इन्फ्लुएंस की बात हमने तुर्कों तक छोड़ दी थी, तो वहां से अगर हम आगे जाएं, देन वी विल रियलाइज विद द ब्रिटिशर्स मोरेवियन मिशनरी हैज एंटर्ड इनटू द वैली। मोरेवियन मिशनरी लगभग 70-80 साल तक एक्टिव रही इस जिले के अंदर, और इस जिले के अंदर 70-80 साल एक्टिव रहने के बाद भी, और इस जिले को बहुत सारी चीजें जीवन को जीने की एक कला को देने के बाद भी, यहाँ का पहनावा में उन लोगों ने मदद किया, यहाँ के हथकरघा में उन्होंने मदद की, और यहाँ और भी बहुत सारी विधाएं जीवन को लेके, क्योंकि वो लोग जागरूक थे, एक सभ्य समाज से आए थे, और एक उस जमाने के हिसाब से एक मॉडर्न जमाने से, दुनिया से आए थे। उन्होंने यहाँ पर खूब सारी मदद की, यहाँ पर लोगों को आग जलाना सिखाया, यहाँ पर अंगीठियां बनाना, तंदूर बनाना सिखाया, चोलू बनाने का एक पैटर्न इजाद किया, और भी बहुत सारी चीजें। उसकी डिटेल में नहीं जाऊंगा क्योंकि समय की अपनी सीमा है। तो लेकिन इतने सालों की बहुत सारी मेहनत के बाद भी वो किसी भी व्यक्ति को यहाँ पर कन्वर्ट नहीं कर पाए। तो कन्वर्ट इसलिए नहीं कर पाए बिकॉज वी हैव ए वेरी वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग कल्चर, वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग कल्चर, and this culture is a mixture of wonderful harmony which I have named element of Kailash. तो मैंने उस जबरदस्त हारमोनी को कैलाश तत्व का नाम दिया। वो कैलाश तत्व का नाम इसलिए दिया क्योंकि जिस प्रकार से हिंदुओं का सर्वोच्च आस्था का केंद्र तिब्बत में स्थित कैलाश है, उसी प्रकार से वो सर्वोच्च आस्था का केंद्र बौद्धों के लिए भी है, बुद्धिस्ट लोगों के लिए भी है, जो उसको कांग्रिपोछे बोलते हैं। और अगर हम उस आस्था के केंद्र को धीरे धीरे खींच कर किन्नौर में या लाहौल स्पीति में लाएंगे तो हमको फिर दोबारा से चंद्रभागा संगम दिखेगा, जिसको ऋग्वेद से लेके, भविष्य पुराण से लेके, मत्स्य पुराण से लेके, स्कंद पुराण से लेके, शिव पुराण से लेके, बैकुंठ पुराण से लेके, इन सारे स्थानों के साथ साथ में बौद्ध शास्त्रों के विमान बस्तु से लेके, खुदक निकाय से लेके सूत पिटक तक जिस चंद्रभागा संगम की आराधना दोनों ही धर्मों के महापुरुषों ने किया, तो ऐसे संगम स्थली को अगर हम लोग कुछ किलोमीटर आगे ले जाके देखें तो फिर हमारे सामने त्रिलोकीनाथ का मंदिर आता है, जो चंद्रभागा संगम से बहुत नया है, एक तरीके से बहुत आधुनिक है। लेकिन वो त्रिलोकीनाथ का मंदिर भी, जिसे हम लोग अवलोकितेश्वर का मंदिर भी कहते हैं, हम लोग शिव का मंदिर भी कहते हैं, उसी प्रकार उससे थोड़े से किलोमीटर आगे जाएं तो हम लोग मृकुला माता का मंदिर देखते हैं, उसको बौद्ध भी मानते हैं, उसको हिंदू भी मानते हैं। तो एक ऐसी मिश्रित व्यवस्था का, मिश्रित धर्म को मानने वाला समाज अगर भारत के अंदर पर कहीं इस जबरदस्त हार्मनी के साथ में है कि आपके घर में अगर विवाह हो रहा है और आपको पता लगा कि पंडित जी जो है वो उपस्थित नहीं हो सकते, अवेलेबल नहीं है, then you call to a lama and then you perform your all kind of rituals, not only the marriages but all the rituals which are associated with our everyday's life. तो इतने जबरदस्त हार्मनी जिस स्थान पर रही, उस स्थान के साथ में मोरेवियन मिशनरी का जो जिस एक्सटर्नल इन्फ्लुएंस की आपने अपने टॉपिक में बात की है, तो हम लोग उस एक्सटर्नल इन्फ्लुएंस से बिल्कुल बचे रहे बिकॉज आवर कल्चर and our harmony within two communities and our understanding for accepting both of the religions, Hindu as well as Sanatan as well as Buddhism, in a same way and same frequency with same respect and regard, it sustained us in those extremely tough conditions when we were illiterate, extremely poor, tribals, the pure tribals, और उसके बाद में then you are interacting with the influence of Moravian missionaries. अब हम उसकी बात को, मोरेवियन मिशनरी को दोबारा इस चैप्टर को यहाँ पर समाप्त करके अगर हम लोग वापस टूरिज्म की ओर आए, जो आधुनिक भारत के अंदर, आधुनिक समय के अंदर इस स्थान के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा साधन हो सकता है डेवलपमेंट का, तो उसके साथ में ये भी अपने आप में, आई कॉल इट टू काइंड्स ऑफ इंट्रूजन्स. One is the economic intrusion and another is the cultural intrusion. Now, after opening of this Atal Rohtang tunnel, we are having the threats of two different kinds of intrusions inside of the valley, which remained protected from all of the things till now. So then we have some of the threats also. कि इस टूरिज्म के आने के साथ में बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें आएंगी जो आपके साथ में कहीं ना कहीं आपको और स्ट्रॉन्ग होना पड़ेगा। तो ये जो उन्नत भारत अभियान है, मैं इस अभियान से जुड़े हुए लोगों को, मैं उनसे आग्रह करता हूं कि जिस सस्टेनेबिलिटी की बात कर रहे हैं आप, जिस सस्टेनेबिलिटी को, कल्चरल सस्टेनेबिलिटी को, जिस एनवायरमेंट की सस्टेनेबिलिटी को, ये एक वो जिला है जहां पर सड़क पर चलते हुए ग्लेशियर दिखते हैं। मुझे नहीं लगता कि देश में कोई और ऐसा कोई स्थान होगा जहां आप सड़क में चलते चलते गाड़ी से उतरे तो यू कैन स्टेप ऑन द ग्लेशियर्स, द एक्सट्रीमली लॉन्ग ग्लेशियर्स। वी हैव ग्लेशियर्स लाइक बड़ा शिगड़ी, छोटा शिगड़ी, ऐसे देश के सबसे बड़े ग्लेशियर्स भी यहाँ पर हैं। बहुत सारी चीजें हैं। तो मेरी उन्नत भारत अभियान के साथ में मेरी प्रार्थना है कि जिस स्थान को यहाँ के लोगों ने सदियों से अनेकों आघातों के साथ में बचा के रखा है, अब जो नवीनता की, जो आधुनिकता की बयार आने वाली है, उस समय में इस स्थान को किस तरीके से बचा के रखना है, उस कैलाश तत्व को किस तरह से जीवित रखना है, अटल रखना है, इसके लिए क्या योजनाएं वहां पर हो सकती है, वो आप कृपा करके मेरे साथ भी अगर विचार आप करेंगे तो हम उस स्थान पर कार्य करते हैं। और चंद्रभागा संगम पर पिछले 4 सालों से चंद्रभागा संगम पर्व के नाम से एक मेला हम लोगों ने आरंभ किया है, जिसमें घाटी के प्रत्येक घर का एक एक व्यक्ति या दो दो व्यक्ति, कई बार तो ताले लगाकर भी, और तालों से याद आए कि ये वो स्थान है अभी तक जहां पर लोग घरों से बाहर निकलते हैं तो ताले नहीं लगाते, लेकिन अगले वर्ष से शायद यहाँ पर तालों की बिक्री ज्यादा हो जाएगी। इस चीज से, इस एक्सटर्नल इन्फ्लुएंस से किस प्रकार से हम इसको, स्थान को बचाएं, वो भी हमको देखना है। तो चंद्रभागा संगम पर्व 29 जून को हर वर्ष मनाया जाता है। तो उन्नत भारत अभियान से मेरी प्रार्थना है कि इस संगम पर्व को, जो यहाँ की सांस्कृतिक विरासत को या एक नदी धरोहर को सम्मान देने का एक व्यक्ति की ओर से सिंधु दर्शन या जो सिंधु पर जो हम लोग कार्यक्रम करते हैं प्रतिवर्ष, उस प्रकार का एक प्रकल्प है, इसको किस प्रकार से हम लोग बढ़ा सकते हैं, इसकी हम सबको मिलकर चिंता करनी चाहिए। दूसरा, जो ट्राइबल एरियाज के जो डेवलपमेंट के पैटर्न में जो एक आखिरी चीज जो मैं बात करूंगा, शायद समय भी हो रहा होगा, तो जो आखिरी चीज मैं बात करूंगा वो है हाइड्रो, बिजली के प्रोजेक्ट, विद्युत परियोजनाएं। किन्नौर एक दूसरा बहुत ही प्राचीन, बहुत ही प्राचीन एक ट्राइबल डिस्ट्रिक्ट है हिमाचल प्रदेश के अंदर। यहाँ की जो परंपराएं हैं और यहाँ का जो इतिहास है, यहाँ की जो सभ्यता है, वो भी किन्नर कैलाश की सभ्यता है और अति प्राचीन है, कैलाश के साथ में जुड़ी हुई सभ्यता है। और यहाँ पर भी देवी देवताओं को मानने वाले लोग हैं, क्योंकि हिमालय में मुझे लगता है कि धर्म बाद में आए, देवी देवता पहले आए। ये एक लंबी चर्चा का एक अलग सा विषय है, इसके बारे में ज्यादा नहीं कहूंगा। तो अगर हम वापिस विद्युत परियोजनाओं की ओर आए, तो आप किन्नौर के विषय में आपने सुना होगा कि विद्युत परियोजनाओं से वहां के पर्यावरण पर और वहां के जनजीवन पर बहुत ज्यादा आघात हुआ है, बहुत ज्यादा नुकसान हुआ है। और उसी नुकसान की तैयारी में लाहौल स्पीति की जो दोनों जो जो दो उसके साथ में जुड़ी हुई अलग घाटियां हैं या दूसरी घाटियां हैं, उसमें भी विद्युत परियोजनाओं की बहुत सारी पोटेंशियल, भी बहुत सारा पोटेंशियल है। लेकिन इसमें भी हम सब लोगों को ये देखना पड़ेगा कि किस स्थान पर परियोजनाओं को लगाकर वहां के जनजीवन को, वहां के पर्यावरण को, वहां के इतिहास को हम लोग छिन्न भिन्न ना कर पाए। और इस दृष्टि से भी जनजातीय स्थानों में काम करने की आवश्यकता है। तो एक और चीज जो मैं कहूंगा, जहां तक ये जो जनजातीय समाज की बात है, इसके विषय में भी हम लोग पिछले लंबे समय से काम कर रहे हैं, वो है यहाँ की बोली। ये महसूस किया गया और ये एक सत्य भी है कि आप अपने कल्चर के साथ में, अपनी सभ्यता संस्कृति के साथ में अगर आप जुड़ाव रखते हो, तो उस जुड़ाव को परखने की अगर बात आई तो आप ये कहें कि क्या आप वहां की बोली बोलते हो, क्या आप अपने घर में वहां की भाषा को, वहां की बोली को बोलते हो, क्या आपके बच्चे वहां की बोली समझते हैं। तो हमने पिछले लंबे समय से एक अभियान पूरे देश में आरंभ किया है, जहां जहां पर भी लाहौल स्पीति के लोग नौकरी पेशा हैं, या जहां जहां पर भी विद्यार्थी विश्वविद्यालयों में या कॉलेजेस में भारत के अंदर पढ़ते हैं, या फिर अपने 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 मूल स्थान में ही, हम सब लोगों से ये आग्रह कर रहे हैं, विशेषकर उन लोगों से जो जिले से बाहर रहते हैं, कि कम से कम आप अपने घर के अंदर अपनी बोली में बात करें। कम से कम ये निश्चित करें कि आपके जो बच्चे हैं वो आपकी बोली जानते हो, क्योंकि यदि आपके बच्चे या आप अपनी बोली में बात करते हो या अपनी बोली जानते हो, तभी ये माना जा सकता है कि आप अपनी संस्कृति के साथ में जुड़े हो, क्योंकि बोली से ही संस्कृति के साथ में जुड़ाव की शुरुआत होती है। ऐसा मैं बड़े स्ट्रोंगली में मानता हूं। तो हम लोगों को अपनी बोली में बात करना चाहिए। पांगी की बोली, जो एक पांगी जो हमारा नेबरिंग रीजन है, पांगी की बोली देश के अंदर तेजी से समाप्त होने वाली बोलियों में अग्रणी है। तो इसी दिशा में काम करते हुए अभी जो एक नया प्रोजेक्ट हम लोग कर रहे हैं, तो वो है ट्राइबल जो डायलेक्ट्स हैं या जो बोलियां हैं, उसकी हम लोग एक डिक्शनरी तैयार कर रहे हैं। तो ये एक छोटा सा प्रयास है, लेकिन लंबे या बड़े स्तर पर जो प्रयास है, वो समाज के, जैसे अभी मैडम प्रोफेसर प्रियंका जी ने कहा कि समाज के साथ में जुड़कर काम करना और समाज के भीतर जाके काम करना, इसकी बहुत ज्यादा आवश्यकता है। तो समाज के भीतर जाके काम करने में विश्वविद्यालय एक बड़ी भूमिका निभा सकता है। जिस प्रकल्प को हमने व्यक्तिगत तौर पर पिछले 8-10 सालों से आरंभ किया है कि लोगों को जाकर बोलना कि आप अपनी बोली में बात करें, सुनने में बड़ी छोटी सी चीज लगती है, लेकिन अगर गहन चिंतन इसके विषय में आप लोग करेंगे तो आपको लगेगा कि कहीं ना कहीं इस बात की सत्यता बहुत अधिक है कि अगर बोली ही नहीं है तो फिर सभ्यता कहाँ की, फिर संस्कृति कहाँ की। बहुत सारे मेले त्योहार होते हैं और इन मेले त्योहारों को, बहुत हमारे जनजातीय स्थान पर अधिकतर मेले त्योहार सर्दियों में होते हैं, और उन सर्दियों के भीतर के जो मेले त्योहार होते हैं उसके रूह में भी, उसकी आत्मा में भी अगर आपने जाना हो तो कहीं ना कहीं उस बोली की जानकारी आपको आवश्यक है। तो उन्नत भारत मिशन के अभियान के तहत विश्वविद्यालयों के साथ में, खासकर ऐसे विश्वविद्यालय जिनके आसपास में, जैसे हमारा विश्वविद्यालय है, हमारे विश्वविद्यालय के आसपास में किन्नौर है, लाहौल स्पीति है, 2 जिले तो एक्सक्लूसिवली है। उसके बाद में आपका पांगी है और भरमौर है चंबा के। उसके बाद में कांगड़ा के कुछ स्थान हैं जहां पर गद्दी कम्युनिटी के लोग रहते हैं। उसके बाद गुजर कम्युनिटी के लोग रहते हैं। ऐसे इन कम्युनिटीज के अंदर इनकी बोली में लोगों को बातचीत करने के लिए, चाहे वो देश में कहीं पर भी रह रहा हो, उसको प्रोत्साहित करने का काम विश्वविद्यालय जैसी इकाई या इंस्टीट्यूशन बेहतर तरीके से कर सकता है, ऐसा मुझे लगता है। और इसी के साथ में मुझे लगता है कि आई ट्राई टू talk on the various modes of tribal development, as I said, that from trade on the Silk Route to tourism and further expected power projects, this remained our journey of development. And I talked about the indigenous culture. I talked about Chandrabhaga Sangam, which has the history mentioned in right from Rig Veda to different other Purans to different other books and that other sources of information written by different historians of different nations, different countries. And then we talked about the external influence, right from the people of Yarkand and the Mongols and then Moravian missionaries, and expected intrusion in terms of cultural intrusion and economic intrusions after opening up of Rohtang Tunnel. So I thought that in this limited time, I tried to touch on all of the mentioned topics. And thank you very much once again to Unnat Bharat Abhiyan and all people, those who are listening to this webinar today. And thank you very much. अगर कुछ आपने जैसे अभी कुछ बातचीत पूछने का भी जो कार्यक्रम है, अगर कोई आपको कुछ ऐसा लगता है, मैं कोई बड़ा विद्वान तो नहीं हूँ, लेकिन फिर भी जितना जो काम मैंने किया है उसके विषय में यदि आपने कुछ पूछना है तो मैं आप सबका स्वागत करता हूँ। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Professor Parshira. So our participants may ask questions. So usually after this 20-minute talk, we have 10-minute Q&A session. So please feel free to share your questions, and we may take those questions towards the end now. So I will move on to our next speaker, Dr. Vishal Singh Neheria. Dr. Neheria has a PhD in geography from Punjab University, Chandigarh. He was an assistant professor at Government College, Dharamshala. Currently, he is the state vice president of Himalaya Parivar, Himachal Pradesh. He is also the expert speaker for Swachh Bharat Abhiyan awareness campaign in Himachal Pradesh. So, Dr. Vishal Singh will talk about his own community, Gaddi community, and he would focus on how this Gaddi community can negotiate or is negotiating with the outer world. So I welcome Dr. Vishal Neheria um, for his 20-minute talk, which would be followed by a 10-minute Q&A session. So please feel free to share your questions. Thank you. Dr. Vishal Naheria, are you able to listen to us?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Please go on.
Actually, my speaker was mute, so I just unmuted it. Thank you, sir. So I'll be talking about the Gaddi community, and I'm also coming from the same community, and I'll be talking with the presentation. So the topic which I'm talking about is the evolution of a native Gaddi community in Dhauladhars, impact of multicultural contacts in new socio-economic realities. So Gaddi is a tribe which live in Chamba and Kangra districts of Himachal Pradesh, and they are mainly crisscrossing in Dhauladhars during 6 months in winters. They go down to the plains of Himachal Pradesh with a flock of sheep and goat. The main livelihood of the Gaddis is shepherdism, and during the summers they go with a flock of sheep and goats to the highlands of Dhauladhar hills. Next slide, please. The term Gaddi is a generic name under which are included Brahmins, Rajputs, Kshatriya, and Rathis. Low castes are categorized as Badi, Sippi, and Hali. This is from Kangra District Gazetteer 1924-25. So this is the area of transhumance of Gaddis. They are mainly crisscrossing in two districts of Himachal Pradesh, that is Chamba and Kangra. During the winter season, for the 6 months, they are crisscrossing from Dhauladhars to plains of Kangra district, and they goes up to Una, Hoshiarpur, and Pathankot areas of the plains. And during summers, when the snow melts, they goes with a flock of sheep and goat till Pangi, Kilad, and Lahol area of Himachal Pradesh. Next. Next slide, please. So this is the traditional attire of Gaddis. So we can see that there is a male Gaddi with his flock of sheep and goat, and a female Gaddan in her traditional attire. Next, please. Gaddis have deep belief in God Shiva and Goddess Durga. During their transhumance, they worship their deities. Some of their traditional temples in Bharmor area are Shiv Shakti Temple and Churasi temples. Next slide. So here we can see that these are the two temples in Bharmor area. The one is Shiv Shakti temple in Chhataradi, Bharmor, and the other is Lakhna temple in Churasi temples, Bharmor. So they are dated back to 7th century, and they are made of wood and slate. And we can see that wood carving is done in these temples, and we can also say that Gaddis are staying in this area that backdated to 7th centuries, because none other than Gaddi community is staying in Bharmor area of Himachal Pradesh. Next slide, please. The Kangra District Gazetteer 1924-25 records the historical change from nomadism to semi-nomadism of Gaddi tribe. So earlier, only pastoral practices were the main livelihood option of the Gaddis, and during with the passage of time, they also began settling in plain areas of Kangra Valley, and agriculture was also introduced. And simultaneously, in Chamba and Kangra districts, slate mining was also taken as another livelihood option by the community. And taking all the above activities together, the livelihood patterns among Gaddis in the valley were within the ambit of sustainability. The settlers' phenomena continued undisrupted and sustained for last 4 to 5 generations of Gaddis. So here we can see that Agati is practicing agriculture, and simultaneously they practiced pastoralism in the area. Next slide. With the onslaught of modernism and development, the area is appearing prominently on tourism map as it is rich in nature, culture, and biodiversity. The cultural contacts of the natives multiplied from occasional interactions to prolonged exposures. Both the districts, Chamba and Kangra, emerged as centers where the nomadic Gadi tribe had come in intimate contact with other ethnic entities. The recent years for the nomadics of Dhauladars have been hopeless and discouraging, so far as the prospects of sheep pastoralism are concerned. Most of the semi-nomadic families have turned settlers, abandoning shepherdism. Actually, shepherdism was the main livelihood option of the Gaddis since ages. So now they are considering sheep economy as a non-sustainable economic activity. Some of the remote hamlets located in the high altitude ecological zones make a case for preserving and encouraging sheep pastoralism in the absence of any other livelihood alternative. So during the discussions with the shepherds in the field area, I have asked some questions are you satisfied with this occupation? So they said that this is their last generation who is willing to do shepherdism for their livelihood. The younger folk doesn't show any interest because of the hardships in this livelihood option, and because of the allurement of the modernism, the younger folk doesn't show any interest in this livelihood. Next, please. Apart from pastoralism, the inhabitants of the Gadi tribe are engaging themselves for livelihood by extracting the raw medicinal plants from the forest. The traditional healing system is prevailing in the area since generations. Next. So these are some commercially important medicinal plant species which are indigenously used by the community. So they are in abundance in Kangra and Chamba area, and many of the families are also indulged in extracting these medicinal plant medicine plants and species. So here we can see that these are the species which are found in abundance in this area. So some of these are like the local name of these species are Dhoop, Chora, Gucci, Bhutkesi, Jatamansi, Rakhal, Banbakri, Kut, Karu, Nihani, Patish, Brahmi, etc. And I have also given the botanical names of the same. Next, please. These are the village-wise listing of tribal Gadi healers. So there are a number of healers which are also known as Vaid in local language. So they are also giving medical facilities to the villagers and adjoining areas of the area. Next, please. These are the traditional dyes which we can say that they are the delivery nurses. Earlier, when there were no medical facilities, they were the traditional dyes. They were available in the villages, and they were acting as delivery nurses. But now, as the medical facilities, because of the development of the medical facilities, most of the villages they are taking facilities from CHCs, hospitals, and PSCs. Next, please. In the modern settings, it is mandatory for the traditional healers in the area to seek registrations as registered VATs as per government guidelines. The natives, along with the herb collectors and healers, can become shareholders of the area-specific cooperatives and constitute a network so as to economize the storage of the collected herbs, marketing, and research and development activities. These herbs are in abundance in the forest of the tribal area. The natives have the traditional knowledge of collecting it from the forests. This knowledge is prevailing through generations. So the socio-economic transition in the in Gaddi tribe. So earlier they were nomadic, and then with the passage of time they become semi-nomadism, and now they have almost 90% of the Gaddi tribe have become settlers. So in this plate we can see the three transitional stages of the Gaddis. Earlier they were fully nomadic in nature, and during semi-nomadic lifestyle, agriculture and mining activity was introduced. And as Kangra and Chabba is very rich in nature, culture, and biodiversity, tourism was introduced in 1980s, and this area has emerged as a melting pot of diverse cultures. So many other ethnic entities, people from all over the world visiting this area because of its nature and cultural heritage. And pilgrimage tourism, like temple tourism, adventure tourism, and nature tourism is developing in this area. And for the last 2 to 3 decades, it has emerged in world tourism map. So the younger folk of the tribe is now engaging themselves in tourism activity. Now coming to the socio-cultural transformation in Gatti habitations. On the surface, everything seems fine with the socio-economic change in the tribal area, disorderly though it may be, for it has promoted tourism, generated a little employment, and strengthened hills economy. But at times, one gets the feeling that modern life is not that a hill culture is designed for. So in this slide, we can see that there is a socio-economic change in the area. Earlier, there were no roads. Now, as the development took place, we have a reach to every village. And in this plate, we can see that earlier the groom was taken in a palanquin. Now we are taking the facilities of modern lifestyle. Next, please. So agriculture and slate mining is still a livelihood option for the Gadis. So agriculture and slate mining, they are taking it as a livelihood option in a very micro level. Next slide, please. Now coming to the future planning and policy making. Some of the recommendations are scientific documentation and planning, policy needs, and financial risk. Area have been basing their plans programs on some raw data which is not being evaluated or matched to suit the needs, wants of changing priorities. Genuine stakeholders, in spite of their consistent demand, are still being kept away from the decision making and the participative planning. here is the need to set up local planning committee.
Dr. Vishal, I think there is some disruption in the network. We are not able to hear you very well.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, it's a bit better. I think either there is some
Connectivity issue, I think, sir.
right. So kindly continue.
Okay. So here is the need to set up a local planning committee of the stakeholders.
So still, we are not able to hear you.
Dr. Vishal, we can't hear you.
Yeah, Professor Ajay, I think he has some internet problem. We can take the next speaker. I think he's already on concluding slide.
Okay, thank you.
And we can take questions from him later on.
Yeah, in the last session, towards the end, we can do that. Okay, so we have our third and final speaker, Professor Aparna Negi. Professor Aparna Negi has a PhD in economics from Himachal Pradesh University, and she teaches at Himachal Pradesh University. She has a teaching and research experience of around 3 decades, and at Himachal Pradesh University, she has held several key positions, including Assistant Director of the Center for Women's Studies and Development, Chairperson of the Department of Economics, Chairperson of the Department of Lifelong Learning, then Director of the Institute of Tribal Studies, and she's also the co-convener of Kinnaur and Lahul Spiti Transnational Chapter of INTAC. So Professor Negi would focus on history and culture related to Kinnaur. So welcome, Professor Negi, and over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Professor Ajay. Thank you very much for the kind words. I'm speaking as the last speaker, and I'm talking to you about Kinnaur, which is a district that I hail from. I think everyone has enjoyed Kinnaur apples, and the district I'm going to talk to you about. And there's something wrong with my computer, so I'm not able to share the presentation that I had made, but I'll present through that. The title that I had given to my presentation was something about District Kinnaur and Kinnauras of Himachal Pradesh. It is very necessary for me, though I'm not a student of history, but it is very necessary for me in the context of the initiative that Unnat Bharat Mission has taken, that I set out a little brief history of the Kinnaura tribe, because we're trying to understand here what has been the interface of Kinnaur with the outside world, what has been the interface of the outside world with Kinnaur, and what have been the pluses and what have been I wouldn't say minuses, but I would definitely say the not so positive aspects of those interactions. So literally speaking, Kinnaur, which is Kinnar Desh, gets its name from the people that inhabit it. Kinnar Desh, as Rahul Sanskrityan says, is the stretch of Himalayas from Kashmir to Nepal, but has modern Kinnaur of Himachal Pradesh and its inhabitants. And he has written extensive. He traveled in these areas in 1926 and then subsequently in 1948. So Monia Williams' Sanskrit dictionary says Kinnar Varsha was a division of the earth said to be north of the Himalayas. Now, the Kinnoras find mention in the Vedas, the Puranas, the epics, the theological literature of the Jains and the Buddhists, and in later literature, they have been enshrined in iconography in India, Burma, as well as Ceylon. Though Kinnoras and Kimpurushas mostly find mention as two distinct tribes, yet some works treat them as synonymous. They were counted sixth among the 8 classes of spiritual beings. You know, the Yaksha, Gandharva, Kinnar, you would have heard of that. That's the area of India which is described to be the place of residence of the Kinnaras is district Kinnaur. Puranic literature details specific functions that were performed by the Gandharvas and the Kinnaras. Kinnaras were the main deities that represented different cultural forces in the Hindu pantheon. In Vedic literature, they were regarded as semi-divine beings that rendered services to gods. They are also mentioned as musicians in the court of Lord Indra. They were regarded among the Gandharvas or celestial beings and also celebrated musicians. Mythology has described their physical form as having either a human head and horse body or a human the other way around. And there are several numerous accounts that speak of them as simply having normal human form. You know how it is with when mythology comes into the picture, then descriptions can become a little difficult to interpret for someone who's not trained in the subject. So that limitation I have already admitted. Now, if you look at district Kinnaur again from today's perspective, then what was called the Chini Tehsil of the former Mahasu district became Kinnaur on May 1st, 1960. It was part of the Bushehr estate with Rampur as its headquarters. And unfortunately, there is a tremendous absence of historical records, and legend and mythological accounts abound. However, expert opinion, historians, etc., who have worked in this area of the general opinion that the condition of North India, especially the hill regions of Himalayas during 6th century BC to AD 647 is the time period of interest. And it is recorded by historians that the kingdom of Magad under Bimbisara and then the Nandas and the Maurya dynasties carried their banners into inner Himalayas. Chandragupta Maurya and then subsequently Emperor Ashok brought about political unification. The Kanishka's Kushan dynasty, during Kanishka's empire, his empire extended up to inner Himalayas. The Gupta Empire also must have included Kinnaur as its northern boundary was along the high Himalayas. Harsha's territory included the kingdom of Suvarnagotra, which was in the high Himalayas. And after his death in 647 AD, the country once again got divided into principalities that were similar to the 6th century BC. In the medieval period, adventurers did not reach here. And between 1803 and 1815, Bushehr state faced several Gorkha interventions. Now, why am I telling you this, having told you that I'm not a student of history? I'm telling you this simply because this is a part of India, which is so far away, tucked away in a little corner, that it has never normally been mentioned in name in most texts. And that, unfortunately, is the misfortune that has fallen on not just Kinnaur, but on several border areas. I would count Lahaul Spiti in that as well. I would count Pangi and Bharmor, Chamba district in that as well. Now, the underlying idea is that the princes that were driven by adventure or by territorial greed went up to the Himalayas and established themselves on varying territories in accordance with their power. Now, specifically between Satluj and Baspa, these are rivers, River Satluj and River Baspa, up to the Mansarovar was under the Thakurs. And these Thakurs were generally known by the name of the area that they occupied. And the Kamru Thakurs proved to be the strongest who annexed territories after the fall of Kannauj and laid the foundation of what we subsequently came to know as Bushehr estate. And of this Bushehr estate, Kinnaur was a very important part and remained as such till the princely states were merged. Now, this mainstreaming of Kinnaur, why did it happen, or why did the mainstreaming of a tribal area take place? I will refer you to what Mr. T.S. Negi wrote. He's referred to as Tete Sahaba for lovingly by all Kinnauras, and Tete is the local term for grandfather. I will talk to you about him subsequently, but here I just want to mention 2 points that he had raised. One was to cover centuries of neglect in the development of border areas, not of a tribal district. Secondly, to intensify the grip of the administrative finger on the political pulse of the border. Please remember, China, Tibet, and then China are immediate neighbors. There is a village called Chit in the Tibet border is just 130 kilometers. It's not high Himalayas, but just to give you some perspective. Now, when you look at present-day Kinnaur, a little bit about who lives there at the moment. The number of villages are 660, of which only 241 are inhabited. I'm talking about 2011 census data. The number of households are around 20,000. The area is however many square kilometers. What is important is it is 11% of the state's geography and about 5% of its population. Population density is 13, and for the state it is 123. Literacy is, male literacy is 87.27, female is 70.96, and overall it is 80%, and in all categories it is less than what we have for the state as a whole. Now, if I talk about population, then at the moment, total population is 84,121, and this is 2011 census. The decadal growth rate of population has been about 7.39%. Female growth rate has been only 4.73, which is why the sex ratio is adverse. It is only 819. Now, if you look at, I won't go into details of this, but interesting to note that the population growth rate has been gradual right since 1901. So it's not something that has happened just between 2001 and 2011. The only exception has been the in 1921. The spread of an epidemic took toll on life, and population declined by about 1%. And the highest decadal growth rate was achieved during 61 to 71. That was primarily because this was created as a separate district, which prompted an influx of people. And that's the case in other districts. I can hear some disturbance. I don't know what is happening. There is some disturbance that I can hear, so I'm not sure if I am clearly audible to you or not.
Yeah, you go ahead. There is some disruption, but we are able to hear you.
All right. Okay, because I could hear some disruption also. It sounded like papers being flipped. So, anyways, administrative divisions. We have 3 community development blocks, which are there are tehsils and sub-tehsils and so forth. I don't want to go into that. I need to just come straight away to the striking features today. Why Kinnaur came into the limelight in recent in the recent past has been on account of degradation of environment, and also this led to people's unrest, which became a big deal particularly in 2014-15. It hasn't died down, but it is not as active as of today. And I think the first speaker, Professor Chandramohan, my colleague from the university, also talked about hydropower. And one of the big reasons for environmental degradation in Kinnaur has been the massive hydropower projects that have been put up. Nobody seems to have wondered what the cost of that hydropower would be. Not just the money cost, but what is the cost that will happen? Because I think somebody forgot that these are young fold mountains, and young fold mountains are still in the development process. So it's a tremendous amount of loss of agricultural land. And in a district such as Kinnaur, agricultural land is at a premium. We have terraced fields. We have very, very little land that is available. And there's been a huge loss that caused tremendous stress. Also, the employment promised could obviously not come to the locals in the numbers that was expected, because they were not technically trained. I mean, how many drivers and how many guards can you keep? You need technical people. So since the locals were not qualified to fill those positions, quite naturally, they didn't get those positions. And then as far as the compensation packages are concerned, minimum number of households is 250, I think, that need to be displaced. Only then will the village be eligible for compensation. Now, in the high mountains, you don't have many villages with 250 households. You have a village with just 40 households or even 30 households. So if that gets dislocated, which has happened, no compensation has accrued, and nobody seems to have bothered about it. That's one dimension. Another dimension, which was mentioned by the gentleman who spoke at the very beginning, he was talking about youth and drugs and so forth. I am not so sure about the drugs part of it, but definitely in this district, juvenile crime is on the increase. And being an educationist, being a teacher myself, I'm very concerned about the boys that are dropping out of education, not just in Kinnaur, everywhere else, because I think very soon we will require reverse reservation in favor of boys. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that the policy response is usually slow. If there is juvenile crime, they will say, okay, the police will handle it, the legal structure will handle it. Somebody from the welfare department will look into the matter and do whatever. What about education? Nobody seems to think education department has a role to play. So these are aspects that I think go hand in hand, and somehow a little bit is a miss there. But having said that, if I come to the tribe as a social group, then what are the characteristics there? There are obviously men and women who by and large have relatively lower literacy attainments. That is changing now, certainly as I showed you the literacy figures, but relatively I would say low literacy attainments. Agri, horti, silvi, pastoral. That's been the lifestyle and continues to be the lifestyle, where there's a little bit of agriculture, a whole lot of horticulture, some to do with trees as well as the cattle wealth. Cattle, by that I mean the sheep and the goat that is kept. From subsistence agriculture to cash crops cultivation, this is a huge shift that has happened. And this has happened because of the enterprising nature of the people there. You know, when you are, as the Atmanirbhar, was hearing someone talk about the Atmanirbhar initiative, and they said when you are faced with difficulty, that's when you start thinking of how to become Atmanirbhar. And I think that is what the people of Kinnaur did. When they were faced with tremendous difficulties, it was a landlocked area, connectivity was extremely poor. Not many people wanted to go there. It was considered a punishment posting. And that is the time when the people took it upon them to improve their lot. Of course, they had some help from the horticulture department and so forth. When apple as a cash crop was introduced, when peas as a cash crop was introduced, and that is where Kinnaur began to derive tremendous economic advantage. So having, there are some people who have also documented that Kinnauras are the richest tribals in the country. Well, if that has happened, it is tremendous achievement, and accolades should be given to the people of Kinnaur who have worked extremely hard and taken advantage of every opportunity on their way. But their ingenuity needs to be saluted, because if talking about per capita income and talking about the wealth increase in this district, you know, when Mr. T.S. Negi was writing his book, that was I think in 1976, he wrote that from a homespun economy, neither luxurious nor extravagant, but steadily secure, even if not always abundant, of a temperament of the Kinnaura people, not driven by money. You will never have, at least this is what is documented in Mr. T. Negi's book, that you will, they traveled, Kinnauras traveled far and wide. They went, you know, to trade and also for purposes of education, as far as Lahore, as far as even Bengal and so forth. And sometimes the pleasure was just in the travel and having new places and new people. Balance sheet would show either a loss or a very, very minimal margin of profit. So that's the temperament, and that sort of is almost genetically coded into all of us. And land holdings, as I said, land is at a premium. It is, land holdings are marginal for the majority of people, and on marginal land holdings, there's not much you can do. Another dimension that you know, human ingenuity and also proximity to Tibet promoted was border trade. which was banned in 1993 and then revived again subsequently. And this border trade, what used to come from salt and Pashmina wool, and what used to be exported to Tibet was fruit, cereals, cloth, good, etc. So this border trade continues even now. It is a commodity trade. No money takes, no, it is barter trade even now. There is the village is now there's a village Khab. Past Khab is Shipkila, which is La stands for the local term for pass, and Shipkila is the path from where Himachal connect. Its Himachal border trade is carried out with Tibet. So that is another dimension. It's been formalized now, but it had been going on for centuries before, because Tibet was closer to Kinnaur than anywhere else in India was. Talking about business acumen not being very high, but what attracted them was the sights that they saw, and as a result of that. For purposes of education, for purposes of improving their lot, Kinauras began to travel out of Kinnaur very, very early. And when I talk human ingenuity and the fact that, pushed to a corner, something had to be done and to improve the lot, there is a village, Leo. It is in the cold desert area, and if you see it from afar, there is a green patch that visible. It just looks like somebody's laid out a green carpet against the dry backdrop of the mountain. That village is one example. There are several others, but that is one example of how Kinauras carried water on their backs and watered their plants and made sure that the apple trees survived. Now, this is tremendously creditable, simply because the desert development program of the government had failed. It was declared to be not so successful, but despite that, there are people. There is the human spirit which said that no, we do whatever it takes to improve our lot. I think needs to be saluted. Now, to look at development, in the context of external influences and so forth, I think there are two manifestations of a fix-it-all panacea. One is external, where you are building roads, providing electricity, making sure there is portable drinking water for every household and so forth. That is one dimension. Second is the internal, which talks about education, awareness, culture, and so forth. Now, in these two manifestations, of course, the external agencies have a role to play, where infrastructure has to be provided so that the lives of locals can play out and they can improve their lot. But when we talk about things like education, awareness, and culture, and so forth, I think sometimes we get, in our excitement, we forget that there is only a limited amount that even education can do. My thesis, my own thesis, was about returns to women's education, and I had studied Kinnaur as one of my field areas. Mobility is a huge constraint. Now, it's not difficult to imagine that locally there's only a certain number of jobs that can be created, however well intentioned. Every district like Kinnaur cannot be absorbed in employment, even in the government sector. So till such time as mobility is a constraint, returns on education can never be high. So how do you fix that then? And this is where creative thinking has to come in, and a platform such as Unnat Bharat, I'm sure, will be able to look at these dimensions. What is the implicit assumption that as a tribal, when you travel and you speak with people in Kinnaur, the implicit assumption of the outsiders that are coming in there, or in whatever manner, is that these need to be done from the outside, which is to say that locals don't know anything, and they need to be beneficiaries of outside benevolence. Now, this to me is a huge paradox, simply because on the one hand, we want sustainable development. On the one hand, we want people's participation, but then we want to treat people as beneficiaries. Now, how can, whenever there is a beneficiary, the term beneficiary comes in, it creates a situation where somebody is giving and somebody is taking. There is inequality there, inherent there. If you treat the very same people as partners in development, which is to say that even they can contribute something, even they have something to contribute, and quite surely they do, they live there. Only the wearer knows where the shoe pinches. So there is need to even make this process not just inclusive in a file, but also inclusive in the way that file gets translated into action in the field. And what this does otherwise is that it undermines all that is good in tribal societies and results in skepticism on part of the tribals, who are very skeptical of, what is it that the outside agencies wish to achieve. Now, the skepticism is also due to engagement with the outside world. The tribe have retained their character of the shyness of contact. I mean, there have been, I was looking at various presentations that have been made in the previous 3 webinars, where several people have quoted the local committee's 5 criteria of tribal communities. One of the big criteria is shyness of contact. So they are wary, and that shyness comes from being wary and being a little skeptical about what is happening. However, as Professor Chandramohan was mentioning earlier, the Monrovian missionaries arrived in Poo in 1865. Medical work took place. There was evangelism was introduced. Government patronage and support was there. But all of this wound up in Kinnaur before 1925 because everyone was seen as an agent of the British. Now, what does that tell you? This is something that has happened in the past. 1925 is gone and will never come back again. But the point I'm making is that, any initiative to improve tribal lives or to impact tribal development will again be seen as an intervention with an ulterior motive till such time as locals are not involved in it. And that involvement must be really, concrete. So when you say, I think Priyanka was the lady, if I remember her name correctly, she was talking about the presence of Unnat Bharat in various villages. Please make that kind of presence in tribal areas as well. And you will find them to be very forthcoming and very supportive of whatever initiative there is. But उनका involvement आपको ensure करना पड़ेगा, उनकी contribution को recognize करना पड़ेगा और उन्हें beneficiary नहीं, उनको partners in development आपको treat करना पड़ेगा. Only then, as an outsider, will you find acceptance. Otherwise, for the local, it is more of the same thing, and then we don't want it. Several initiatives I can talk about, which have, I won't go into that now. If there is time, I will look at that. Now, if you look at, I'm going to, for a moment, to Professor Chandramohan's district, the famous Lahuli socks. I don't know if you go to Himachal Emporium in Delhi, possibly you'll see them. That is the German style of knitting. Now, that quite naturally was introduced to Lahul from outside, who was either a German or somebody who knew about German knitting. Now, the Ladakh Messenger and Kelong Times are newspapers that have existed for a very, very long time. So it's not as if tribal communities have not known what to do, or it's just that the due recognition has not come. Now, a couple of facts I want to narrate to you. The only permanent bridge at a place called Vantu, which was referred to in Alexander Gerard's book of 1841, the book is called The Account of Kunahur in the Himalayas, was washed away in a flood. Now, crucial watershed in the history of Indian forestry is the building of railway networks. Everybody, all general knowledge, kids studying general knowledge to take any entrance test to learn when was the first railway track established. Everyone talks about the heritage train that runs between Simla and Kalka, the little toy train and so forth. Please remember, Deodar forests in the Satluj Valley, which is mostly Kinnaur, was rapidly exhausted because they needed sleepers for the railways. Private contractors, whether Indian or European, were chiefly responsible for this degradation. And the forest department was started to supervise forests because private operators were reckless and wasteful. Now, I've sourced this from Forestry in British and Post-British India by Ramachandra Guha. So, the point I'm making is that resources have always been, sort of extracted. I shy away from being exploited, but nevertheless, I'm sure you get the point I'm making. Now, how then? Where do you start then? As external agents, as people in wanting to mainstream tribal communities and so forth. Where do you start? I mean, if you look at traditional crops, buckwheat, for instance, palahar. Why I mention buckwheat? आप व्रत रखते हो, और आप उस दिन फलहार खाते हो, है कि नहीं? ओगले का आटा. Now that ogle ka atta for you may be falhar, which you eat once in a vrat. For me, it is staple food. It is extremely nourishing, extremely full of all the good stuff, vitamins and everything it has in it. That's scientifically proved. But since it is counted as a coarse grain, there are not many buyers unless aap vrat rakhte hain. So now what is happening is that it is produced mainly only for self-consumption. What has happened to koda or kodro, other grains which were again very nourishing, very much required for the diet, for survival in those cold desert conditions and in snow conditions, is being produced in even lesser quantity. What about leafy vegetables? There's a tremendous loss of indigenous varieties because the comes and tells the tribal, oh, you don't know anything unless you're eating what we eat, and unless you're consuming, you really don't know. You don't know. You must eat all of this. So what is happening is that what is beautiful and what is so good in these tribal communities is being lost. Cash crops, which is almonds and apples. This is a development of the last 30 to 40 years. And what is happening to apple? We did a study, and what we found was that diminishing returns have begun to set in. You need to rework these apple orchards, spur have to be put in. Now, every privately owned apple orchard, every person who depends upon their orchard income is by themselves moving to spur varieties and so forth. So it's again a matter. It's not that people there are not clued into what is good and what is happening and what needs to be done. It needs support. It needs to be strengthened. It needs to be supported, and these opportunities have to be recognized. And I can't emphasize enough how glad I am that Unnat Bharat has taken this initiative, create a platform to articulate these concerns. So congratulations to you. You know, as alternates, hydropower was suggested, and I know for a fact that after the Pong Dam oustees fiasco, which is a dam that was built on the Beas in district Kangra, a matter of rehabilitation which has still not been settled, and there's still a lot of unhappiness. The government of Himachal took a conscious decision to have only run-of-the-river projects. Now, even those run-of-the-river projects, problems have arisen. Now, that needs to be addressed. Himachal is producing, it has whatever number of hydropower projects. This is another discussion. I'll go into the findings of a study we've done later. But you know, we are still, whatever hydropower projects there are, whether small or medium or large, none of them, the ones that are functional now, not even one of them is operating at full capacity. Now, when they're not working at full capacity, where is the need to establish new hydropower projects? The ones you have, please operate those. And then we are told we are a power surplus state. If we're a power surplus state, why is power not free for us? So these are some, the powers that we need to answer these questions. As far as Kinnaur is concerned, tourism, particularly adventure tourism, is something that can be taken up, and that has tremendous potential. It will also absorb a number of youth, which would be really fantastic. What does all this mean? You know, another possibility that emerges is through indigenous knowledge. I think one of the speakers hinted at indigenous knowledge. All of you sitting in the hot areas of India have probably consumed something called leh berry. It's the juice which DRDO, the army organization, has developed, I think with some local NGOs. Seabuck thorn is the plant that they have sourced for this juice, and it's tremendously good. And China, I'm not particularly fond of saying this, but the fact remains China has created not just juice, but even jam and jelly and wine, and with whatever else is left, they've created some kind of a soap or a face scrub. So they've left nothing unused. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this simply because my grandmother, bless her soul, she's no more, she had told me once that when I spoke to her about it and I asked her if she knew what seabuck thorn was, so she had no clue. I took a twig and I showed her, oh, charma, she says. So she knew the local name. And then she says, this is, the fruit is used as a preservative in foods. we are still not using that. She also said that they convert some mix it with water and do something to it, and cattle, it is used to cure foot and mouth disease in cattle. Now that is again another dimension that is not explored. So there's tremendous indigenous knowledge, which, as the name suggests, as all of us know, it is in the verbal tradition and mostly vests with women. Look at the monetary benefit that you can. I'm a student of economics, so look at the patent value that this has in the current WTO regime. So these are issues that need to be, these are dimensions that need to be explored. And this is where, the interface of the outside world becomes fruitful, and it sort of starts to deliver whatever it is supposed to deliver. Now, if you look at education, as I pointed out earlier, because mobility is restricted, education is not the panacea that everyone thinks it is. Manrega, with its expanded shelf of activities, will still continue to serve a purpose. Migratory labor, you will not believe this, but labor from Bihar and even Nepal comes to Kinnaur now, particularly during the apple picking season. And as if it is, and then the managerial position on large orchards is what they have been able to achieve. They are still main workers on the smaller land holdings. So there's some things that need to change there. When you talk about land alienation, a couple of points I wish to raise, because this has direct influence of the policies that are created. Now, when you demarcate and you fence off forests, then effectively there's a loss of control by forest dwellers and tribes over their habitat. And this increases the pressure on forests still left open to them. So it's sort of nobody's winning. The producer separated from his means of production prior to British intervention, forest dwellers and tribes were free men owning their means of production. And that, unfortunately, has changed for the betterment. Now, the history of conflict and struggle can be seen as emanating from alternative concepts of property, right, and obligation. And I'll talk about this if time permits later, but I just want to briefly talk about the Forest Rights Act of 2006. It has still not been implemented. So, tribes and other traditional forest dwellers who have been residing in such forests for generations, but whose rights could not be recorded. The act was to provide a framework for recording forest rights and so forth, but it has not been implemented so far. So again, that's an area where Unnat Bharat can take the initiative. Now, people's participation in managing local biodiversity. I mean, there are scientific practices which closely mimic traditional practices. If you look at the concept of sacred grove, there are some who disagree. They say there are no such thing as a sacred grove, but there's evidence that there is. These have been documented. Now, this sacred grove is very much akin to the national parks today. Both mean full protection. So whether it is a sacred grove and there's fear of the divine and fear of the devta, and therefore the forest is left untouched, or you create a national park, the end result is the same. And the main ingredients of a scientific inquiry is that it is open access to all, rejection of all authority other than what is empirical fact, and welcoming to all questions, all facts and assertions. Now, the poor quality database is a characteristic of the so-called scientific forestry today. That is a dimension that needs to be looked at. Because forestry and scientific forestry is a very specialized field. Not everyone is technically trained to handle it. So that there need to be brought in, and something that needs to be looked at. From being an intrinsic part of tribal agriculture, forests have come to be inserted into a commercial economy, which has sharply undermined the ecologic basis of sustainable subsistence agriculture. Another dimension is the customary law and the customary rights that obtain. So whenever there's a clash between customary law and which is contained in the Wajibulars, when there's a conflict between that and the law of the land, obviously the law of the land prevails. But there is some very beautiful things in the customary law as well, and those also to be taken cognizance of. One dimension which the outside world just does not understand, the institution of the devta. One said, these are our ancestors, so noble and so wise, and we owe them reverence, and therefore we venerate them to the state of devta. Either that, or during the other theory is that during the Mahabharata, during the war at Kurukshetra, all the good people that were dying on both sides, Lord Krishna threw their heads into the mountains and said that Kalyug mein aap raj karenge, and these are the devtas. Now it doesn't matter what the background is, it doesn't matter what the story is. You have to, as an outsider, understand the reverence and the connect that locals have with their. Now this is something that is it's an experiential thing. It is something you are born into. It is not something that can be explained. Now, what I find very amazing is the need to connect whatever we have by way of in the form of devtas to, oh, this is Shaivite and this is Shakti and this is Vishnu and this is, why don't just leave it? Because somebody's belief is that it's not business. What is the need that to the main Hindu pantheon? I'm sure people who have arguments in favor of that, and I fully respect their sentiments and their. I'm just articulating what I feel, because my religion is my. Who I worship is my business. I don't need to be told isko worship karo ya usko worship karo ya isko to worship karte ho. Ye to actually it is this form. So simply because the devtas, the institution of the devta is not understood, it doesn't have to be simplified. So that is one point I definitely wish to make. And please understand, these sacred groves, the fear of the devta. As a student of economics, I understand one thing. If you look at banking habits today, loan lete hain, phir default karte hain us payment pe. And banks don't recover whatever they had loaned out, and this is a huge big issue with the banking structure, with the formal banking structure today. Look at the institution of the devta. I mean, forget everything else. There was the devta, the only institution that had some money with it. So people could go and borrow with the promise of repayment. Now the fear of devta, आप कह लीजिए उसको, या to the devta कह लीजिए, there was never. So devta was actually a very efficient banker. Now I understand that in times gone by, cash particularly, it is documented, they were not driven by money. But irrespective, the fact is, there was never a default on loan repayments, and this is only a recent occurrence with modern banking. So that's another dimension that needs to be looked at. And one of the anyone interested in Kinnaur or knowing about Kinnaur must refer to Rahul Sanskrityan. उन्होंने 1926 में भी लिखा, 26 or 1948 maybe. He traveled extensively. And in even if we discredit 1926, 1948 की तो उनकी किताब definitely है. उसमें उन्होंने dangers of deforestation की बात की. उन्होंने taming the Satluj for harnessing its water for irrigation and drinking purposes की बात की थी. The need to popularize local varieties of fruit, your chulli and black grape and apple and chilgoza. He talked Kinnaur having shortage of milk. He talked about local honey as being a wonderful product. And he also talked about wool products. He talked about mining of metals. He talked about tourism as an industry. And he spoke of an airport for Kinnaur in 1948. We're talking today in 2020. Don't you think all of this is a paradox? So you look at it from Kinnora's perspective, from a Laula's perspective, from a Pangwal's perspective. It is tremendously frustrating to be treated as a. It's almost like I don't know. Maybe there's a question. I will answer it there. At the very end, if I think I've overshot my time, but at the very end, I just wish to draw your attention to the fact that Kinnaur has been saved owes a huge debt of gratitude to Mr. T.S. Negi, who ensured that land in Kinnaur could not be bought by outsiders. Otherwise, all commercial interests from everywhere else would have been owners of orchards in Kinnaur, and the Kinnaura would have been reduced to a worker on his own fields. That fortunately has not happened, and it is therefore with tremendous reverence that all of us Kinnauras refer to Mr. T.S. Negi as Dete Sahab. It was his vision, it was his far-sightedness, You can think of it like this, that he was in, I think, 1906. He passed on in 2001. In 1906, he was born, and as a young, he studied in the school in a nearby village called Kilba. From there, he went to Rampur. He studied there, and then went on to do a graduation in agriculture from Lailpur College in Lahore. So look at the farsightedness that his parents had of sending their child so far away just to be educated. Now that is a hallmark of Kinora society. That is a hallmark of all tribal societies in Himachal. I can say that with absolute certainty, because the value, the premium on education, the premium on trying to improve the lives of future generations is taken very, very seriously, and every family tries to impart the best possible education, and they do send their children far and wide. Kinoras are tribe. I would say even all tribals from Himachal are global citizens. They're internationally very well traveled. Many are living overseas and doing extremely well. So with that, I think I should stop rambling on now. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for your time, and thank you, Unnat Bharat, for this wonderful opportunity. Um, Congratulations to you for this initiative, and I'm absolutely going to hold Bharat through your initiative to doing something proactive and creative to improve the lives of tribals in Himachal. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Negi. That was very interesting and so we will take questions, and we will have a joint session wherein three of the speakers would be taking questions from the participants. Before that, I would like to make a couple of comments. Well, in the throughout the lectures, throughout these three talks, we realized how the communities which are like indigenous, and how the forces from outside they make certain changes or bring certain changes, or how this organization of India. So there are certain communities, specifically the scheduled tribes of India. So they have remained at the margins, and they continue to do so. Um, so if we look at Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, so the idea of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan is to um, deepen democracy and to make development participative, so that the people whose lives are affected by certain initiatives of government, or they also have certain aspirations, and then they can bring those aspirations in front of the policymakers, or convey what is it that they want. So Unnat Bharat is that kind of platform. So the idea is not that we work for the people. The idea is that we learn from the people and we work with them. And here, like, we have a network of over 2,600 participating institutes. And the idea is, we see that there is a colonization of minds, or colonization of knowledge. And if we look at that, knowledge is power. So we generate power. We generate certain discourses whereby we would say that certain communities, certain people, or certain practices, they are good or bad. So those people who generate knowledge, they have a lot of power. And this is also very interesting to see that people, those who are in the position of power, they are somehow able to impose their worldview on other. So now there are different worldviews. For instance, a community, Gaddi community, would understand the world in a different manner, and people living in cities would understand world in a different manner. So this is a contestation of ideologies, and those who are in that position of power to impose their worldview, their ideas on other, they are the one who drive you know most of these changes that come from outside, and then they destroy some of these communities. So Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, the idea behind Unnat Bharat Abhiyan is that who are knowledge, they come and work together with communities, and then the these knowledges of these traditional knowledges or the ideas from bottom, they go up, and based on those ideas, those inputs which are coming from bottom, the policies are harmonized in that way. So this is what I briefly wanted to share with regard to the vision that Unnat Bharat Abhiyan has. Now we will take questions. So we have received one question for Dr. Vishal Singh Neheria. Dr. Neheria, are you able to?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So one participant wants to know that this Gaddi community that you come from and the Gaddi community that you have studied, so it is spread in many states. So the
Yes.
participant wants to know some of these connections, some of these like cultural connects that are still there, some of these features or some of these histories that they share, oral histories that they share. So the participant wants to know how do you connect like these Gaddis who are spread elsewhere. There are certain differences that they exhibit, but there are also certain similarities they exhibit. So could you please um, focus on this?
The connections between the community members who are staying in other states of India, like we have a Nuala, that is a traditional you can say it is a function that is organized by the Gaddis since ages, and in this we worship God Shiva. So Nuala is a function which connects all Gaddis of the states of the all the Gaddis who are residing in all the states of India. So it is being celebrated in Delhi, also in Chandigarh and other parts of the country. And we are also like our marriages are still functioning in traditional manner. And I think Professor Sanjeev Sharma, he will also put a light on it because he's staying in Delhi. He's teaching in JNU. So he can also share his experience being staying in Delhi.
Yeah, so thank you, and Professor Ajay. I would just want to highlight some of the point that asked the question by some of the participant. So you know that this Gaddi is basically like in different literature, the word come from the Gadiara, or the people those who are rearing the sheep and the goat. So you know that due to some the climatic conditions, yeah, although these the Gaddi basically these the tribals Gaddi in Brahmor, which was earlier the ancient capital of the Brahmpura area. The Brahmpur king was there. The old name of the Brahmor was the Brahmpur, and the area which lies like the other side of the Dholadhar region or the Pir Panjal area. This is also known as the Gadheran area, and the area which lies in this Dholadhar area or the plain area, which is also known as the Jandhar area. And you know that during their the transhumance or the migration, they also migrated to the other region area. So there are the some of the pocket in Jammu and Kashmir, the same cultures, the same community are also living in these areas, specifically the Bhadrawa region, also the Udhampur district also. So the Gaddis are also living in these area, evenly the plain area, the district of Kangra. But the Vishal Nehria highlighted these are the basically the Gaddi, those who are living like the Dholadhar region, this side or the that side. Although there are some of the Gaddi community, even they are some of the literature highlight that they are also in the Chhattisgarh area or the Jharkhand area, even in the Pakistani region also. But that is the different the community. Basically, they are related with the rearing of the sheep and the goat. So I think the participant may be satisfied with this answer. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Sanjeev. So this is a question which is to all of the speakers. So this pandemic, we are going very interesting times. This pandemic, And the kind of response that we have seen from indigenous communities, some of these indigenous communities, they are really really, I would say, stunning responses. I would give example, the study that I have conducted in Nicobar and Bru, that is in Mizoram. So there are these two indigenous communities, and after this lockdown, they faced an unprecedented situation. For instance, in Nicobar, there is this Nicobari community, and after this sudden lockdown, there was a panic within the community. But the way the leadership handled the situation in Nicobar, the Nicobarese people, it was phenomenal. Similarly, there is this community that was internally displaced from Mizoram, and then they settled in the late 90s, 1990s. They settled in the adjacent state of Tripura, and they still live in these intermediate, makeshift shelters. So the kind of response that this community of say 5,000 people in Ashapara camp, the kind of response, the inclusive response, specifically protecting the most vulnerable sections of their community during the pandemic, so that was phenomenal. And there is a lot of learning that can that one can take. There are a lot of learnings that one can take from these communities. So three of you have been working with the indigenous people of Himachal Pradesh. So can you share some of the instances that you might have come across, that you might have read, or through your own research work, some of these, say, the cultural singularities of these communities that are very important and the world can learn from them, and some of the responses of these communities during the pandemic? Can you please share those? Maybe we can start with Professor Parshera.
Yes, Dr. Ajay. I have few things almost similar to what your experience of that state. In the month of March 2020, just after the announcement of lockdown, Spiti is a valley or a place in Himachal Pradesh where the civil society and the citizens of the area or the local community, they have decided to uh, ban the entry of any outsider into Spiti Valley for 2 months earlier, which further they extended to the whole year. And they said, kindly don't visit Spiti unless until we are out of the threat of this pandemic. And as per my knowledge and information of this northern region of the country, Spiti is the only place, only subdivision, or the only community which has imposed complete ban on entry of any outsider. The another point of the similar or the same story is why this could happen or take place, because I feel the patience in the tribal communities is as high as the mountains of Himalaya, because we remained snow covered or protected by the high mountain walls. We remained isolated. We remained in a very tough situations of life for centuries. And this habit of living inside of the bowl of, you can say, a valley, it has developed slowly and slowly. It has developed a great patience inside of every individual of these tribal communities. So this concept of accepting a lot of loss from tourism, because it needs to be made very clear that Spiti is one of the most liked destination of Himachal Pradesh nowadays, and the interest for this destination is ever increasing, not inside of the foreign tourists, but similarly at the same pace inside of the domestic tourists also. Snow leopard of Spiti and snow in Spiti, driving on snow-covered roads, participating in some kind of rituals, which the festivals which take place during the winters. It it has become such a wonderful product altogether for the travel community of the world, including India domestic market, of course. So they said we don't need any tourist, we don't need even any outsider, even if he is not coming for the tourist purposes or the traveling. So this acceptance of loss for the welfare of community, I think that it has come from that grand patience which this society has developed over the years. And it was a wonderful experiment. They could save themselves for almost March to October, September end almost. There was no case of COVID in Spiti for almost more than 6 months. And once we all started enjoying the benefits of freedom given to us by Unlock 4 or 5, so slowly what started happening in this valley also, that a couple of people, they visit Manali to attend a wedding, and then they are coming back, and they were all infected and it multiplied, and the entire efforts of the community of almost 6 to 7 months turned into a very different kind of problem or situation. But fortunately, now the cases are decreasing day by day in Spiti Valley. And this is what I have to share. And another part of the same district in Lahore, the Mahila Mandals. One thing which I would like to mention here, the female population and which is organized into Mahila Mandals in all of the villages is extremely active in these areas, in tribal areas. If you need to spread any kind of information, if you want to organize any kind of event, if you want to collect people or ask them to come forward for any new initiative, any new idea, some kind of seminars or workshop, you just that simply send a message to Mahila Mandals and you will find the wonders. So the Mahila Mandals of Lahore, they moved to all of their areas, their villages and panchayats and all, with the messages that how we can save our or protect our community from this corona problem. Concluding with a statement that I found the tribal community of Himachal Pradesh extremely active to fight against the corona or COVID-19. Thank you, Dr. Ajay.
Thank you, Professor Parshera. Professor Aparna Negi, would you to share some of your experiences during the pandemic? Some of those like features that got accentuated, some of the characteristics, or some of like mechanisms whereby they showed that they have some kind of resilience, or there is something that the world can learn from these communities.
Certainly, I'm in complete agreement with what my colleague Shira has just mentioned. I think, one also has to understand that tribal communities are very prone to pathogens, because the area that is tribal in Himachal has very pure air, has, there is, when you do agriculture, you don't have to do weeding because there are no weeds, there's no kharpatwar. So it's only that which you put in the soil which will grow. So people there are very prone to pathogens, particularly lung diseases and so forth. So this particular corona virus has brought a couple of things to light. One, that when a community comes together, a great can happen. As Professor Parshira was just mentioning, I think they did a brilliant job, and no corona was found in Lahul or in Spiti. Cut to the time when the lockdown was removed and travel was allowed, and the testing was not initially the testing was insisted upon, but then subsequently there was a little leeway given, and testing was not being insisted upon. And look at the trouble we had. I'm sure Professor Parshira will give you the name of the village. I'm told there are 43 inhabitants of that village, 43 people in that village, not houses, 43 people. And out of 43, 42 had symptoms, and the 43rd person was positive but was asymptomatic. I'm just driving home the fact that tribal communities, tribal people have a very frail constitution because they live in very pristine conditions. So exposing tribal areas to the possibility of the spread of coronavirus is something that needs a bit of more consideration. Now, for example, when I talk about Kinnaur, Kinnaur did not, impose the kind of restrictions Spiti and Lahul did, and there was quite a scare initially. We are told there was a gentleman who arrived from Australia and did not go to Maharashtra, where he was actually a resident of. How he made his way to Kinnaur, I don't know. And then in Kinnaur, a hospital give me a certificate saying that I'm free. That's when the alarm bell was quarantined, and that is another story. But the fact is that such incidents also happened. However, with the spread of coronavirus, with people actually seeing body bags and people loved ones, there is a great deal of more seriousness in the way corona is being handled now. For instance, just recently the Vyapar Mandal, or all the traders have issued a notice saying that we are shutting the market just to ensure the safety of people. So there is no opportunity for people to gather. So these kind of initiatives are taking place. I think what is important to remember is that tribal communities, wherever they might be, because they live in very pristine conditions, are prone to pathogens more than others. And therefore, we need to be a little more sensitive to that. And so that's the kind of learning I think that we have taken from, at least from Kinnaur. And also, most certainly, I have to re-emphasize that when communities get together, a great deal can happen, and that was shown to us in no small measure by the people of Lahore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Negi. Dr. Vishal Singh, would you like to share some of your observations?
Yes, sir. So the total population of Gadi tribe is around 3 lakh, and when the first lockdown was imposed, many of the tribal community members who were working in cities and other part of the country, they wanted to come to the native place because it was all panic all around. So many of the Gadi tribals who are away from their native place came back, and some of them they took the corona with them. But the good thing is that we are more connected with the nature, so we have a strong immunity system. So this is one of the reasons that we survived from the corona. And the village heads and the social workers who are in our area, they also helped and did awareness campaign among the tribes. And during the first and second lockdown, they also distributed the masks and sanitizers and food to the needies who are working in this area, like the laborers. So somehow we could survive with the corona, and it is a good signal. And most of the affected tribals, they were suffered with corona for 1 week to 10 days, not more than that. And the immunity system helped us defeat Corona. This is what I can say.
Thank you, Dr. Vishal. So this to three of you. Whenever there is a change in a community from outside, I mean, if we look at change, communities are not frozen in time or place. So the change outside and they are imposed on the community. We have in front of us, jeopardize the destroy the unity.
I can't hear.
So,
Dr. Ajay, I think that you need to repeat your question.
right. I'll repeat it.
The audio broke.
Right. So the question is, whenever any community, if we look at our communities, they change over time. So the changes could be from outside. There are certain forces to give some kind of context. The kind of development that happened in colonized countries, it happened in certain way. It destroyed their languages, it destroyed their cultures. Communities were totally shattered. But then within communities, there is some kind of like resilience, then there are some kind of responses. So I want to know from you, with regard to Kinnoris, is there some kind of initiative by the Kinnoris to preserve the initiatives?
I didn't get the last part of your question. I understand you're asking what the Kinnoras are doing to preserve their own heritage and culture, and is that the question?
Right. Those initiatives, like.
Okay. You know, the Kinnora community, I mean, as you're saying that societies evolve and change happens, and some of it is forced and others is not. The fact is that, as I was mentioning to you, that for purposes of trade, for purposes of subsequently for purposes of education, and then also for purposes of employment, Kinnoras have been moving out of Kinnor for decades now. And change has certainly happened. I mean, the premium that families now place on educating their children is a very welcome change to see. The fact that other sources of income, when when standard definitions of what is the household source of income was one time only agriculture and was dismal, then it became horticulture, and now it's become even government service and so forth. There's many initiatives being taken which sort of augur very well for some form of change that is happening in the way households conduct their everyday business, and where income comes from, and what people from Kinnor are doing. Earlier it was insular, nobody sort of, the majority didn't travel. Now the majority travels, so that is one welcome change. Having said that, we people of Kinnor, and I think that's true even for Lahaul and Spiti, that's also true for the Gaddis and other tribals in Himachal, is that we are very proud of the people we are. By that I mean that there are many cultural practices that we just don't let go of. For instance, I mean, if you keep track of the Kinnora community in Delhi, where all of you are situated, you will find that once a year they have something known as a toshim. Toshim means a sitting together. Now, that is one occasion when all Kinnoras in Delhi, irrespective of who they are and where they are together. Now, if once in a 364 days they don't see each other, and on one day they sit together, what is the purpose of that? Now, the purpose of that is nothing but to express solidarity with one another, to say, I've got your back. Should anything happen, we're all together. So it's a very wonderful community activity that happens. If you look at celebration among the tribals, there is no such thing as an individual dance performance. There is no such thing as an individual act. It is a community activity. हम उसको लोकल भाषा में, हिंदी में नाटी कहते हैं. where everyone joins in the dancing, in the celebrating, in the singing, and in the music. So it's a very community-oriented, celebrations that we have. Professor Parshira was mentioning to you that all of our celebrations mostly take place during winter. That's very true even for Kinnaur, because winter months you don't have anything to do when when there's layers of snow around you. How do you keep yourself occupied, and what is it that you do? So that's when you sort of celebrate. Everyone comes together. Nobody's left alone. I mean, imagine you are in a snowbound area. You don't see anyone for days on end. You can go into depression. Now, how does a community look after its kind? They all get together, they sit together, they eat together, they celebrate together. All of this happens during winter because it's a very gloomy time otherwise, and also there isn't much else to do. So that is one dimension. The other dimension is, of course, for instance, marriage ceremonies, for instance, birth ceremonies, or everything that happens. There is a cultural connotation which the Kinauras have not let go of. So so in that sense, our culture stands preserved. Also, I have to say that I'm in complete agreement with Professor Prashira when he talks about the losing language through disuse. There is a huge amount of local folk music that we have lost because गाने वाले नहीं रहे, उन्होंने आगे सिखाया नहीं, लोगों ने सीखा नहीं, and therefore the quality of music that is now emanating is very Bollywood music type. Which is not that you can listen to it once, but maybe don't want to listen to it again. But the old songs, the old music, I mean that I know of some people who are documenting those old songs and music. I think हमारी university के music department में there was a student who was working on that. So इस तरीके की चीजें हैं, but the fact is that change is the dominance. And is the thing that change is the only constant. So change of course होता है, evolution होती है, societies merge करती हैं, societies evolve करती हैं. जो अच्छा है उसे आगे ले, जो अच्छा नहीं है उसे छोड़ देती हैं. So that would things like lost, as I pointed out when I spoke earlier, that we've lost our indigenous varieties. Now those indigenous varieties not only grew there, they were very rich in their nutritional value. तो इन चीजों को रिवाइव करने की जरूरत है, that there is value in foodstuffs and so इस तरीके के कुछ changes हैं जो अच्छे नहीं हैं, and that's all I will say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Negi. I think share your on this.
There is some problem in your voice, Dr. Ajay.
Okay, I think there is the network because of that. So, Professor Parshira, please go ahead.
Yeah, the same question which Dr. Aparna has answered.
Please. So,
right.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Under some of the initiatives that are being taken by the communities and what has happened to those initiatives.
Right. So got it. Got it.
Specifically indigenous communities. So that's the idea.
Yeah. All right. Got it. As Professor Aparna Negi also had mentioned that we are living in a place where we share boundaries with Tibet. And majority of people, they call it China, but I say that it is Tibet. So Spiti is a place, once again we are moving towards Spiti, where you find all barren shining mountains and monasteries of more than 1,000 years old. So the monasteries are the center points for so many instructions to the society. the people of Spiti and even Lahore also, and even Kinnaur also, they look towards monasteries for certain kind of instructions. I will be sharing a very wonderful experience or example with you. 3-4 years back, I reached Tabo. Tabo is a place in Spiti, which is called as Ajanta of Himalaya also, which is having one 18, 19 years old monastery made by Rinchen Zangpo, Acharya Ratnabhadraji. So I reached to the village, and then we visited to some of my friends' place, and surprisingly, this time they did not serve me with the Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew is a cold drink, you all know it. And because this Mountain Dew, some of the times I say to my fellow, that people of Laos Spiti, that I say we should get special prize from Coca-Cola, because consumption of Mountain Dew in Laos Spiti is so wonderful that we are going to be by Pepsi from America. So this time they did not serve Mountain Dew, and I asked them that you directly, that we are coming to the tea and some biscuits and all. Where is Mountain Dew this time? So he said that the Thai monk or the man monk of Tabu Monastery, he appealed to the society that kindly don't use a Mountain Dew at this level, that it could harm to your body or to your health. So we are waiting for the monastic instructions. One thing, and the another thing is development inside of the society. As Madam also has said that it is a close contact society. There is nothing which we do on more of the times on individual levels. So majority of right from our agriculture to that all other activities of life, these are collectively done. So we do discussions on certain ideas. The certain ideas related to marriages she mentioned. This is the only place, I think, where still a DJ has not entered. We play our traditional flutes and the nagaras, the drums, which slightly have replaced by the modern drums. The nagaras were replaced by modern drums. And there are certain initiatives taken by certain, that organizations of the society. In 2015, in Gaiety Theatre of Shimla, one concert was organized by Lala Meme Foundation of Laul Spiti, and the name of the concert was Turning the Wheels of Musical Legacy. So it takes you back to more than 2,500 years once the turning the wheel of Dhamma was introduced by Mahatma Buddha. So on the same pattern, this concert was named Turning the Wheel of Musical Legacy. And it was found and observed during that program, which had an academic phase also, that the history of flute in the world is almost 35,000 years old. And the history of flute in India was more popularized by the notion or the belief that Lord Krishna was one of the great flute artists. And then further, it was also disclosed that Mahatma Buddha was after Lord Krishna within a gap of almost 2000 years of time. Mahatma Buddha was also a wonderful flute player, wonderful flute player. Lot of things are described in the Buddhist literature about Mahatma Buddha and his flute. And on the same pattern, it was also discovered in the tribal areas there were 108 different kind of ragas which were played on flute and nagara. And during this event, almost 40 of the almost disappeared ragas were discovered once again. And after this event, in the entire district, more people have started playing flute and nagara and learning how to play flute and nagara. So this is one aspect. Once we can talk about the art and music, and then there are few another things in marriages. We tried to understand that how our marriage functions were performed initially, and we tried to maintain all those things, making it shorter. And then another thing which recently was rediscovered is the Anushthan of Chacha. Chacha is the Anushthan. It has come from the Chach Dhatu of Sanskrit, and almost after almost 95 years, in 2016, this Anushthan was restarted or recreated or rediscovered. What used to happen during the older times in the valley, that whosoever is dying during the winters, so his ashes were kept or preserved inside of a small pot or some other thing for almost 6 months of time. And then once there is a change in the weather, summers or approach, and then they used to take all those ashes to the monastery, and then you mix it with the clay and make small stupas, and then immerse into the water of Chandrabhaga Sangam, and to put in some of the holy caves and all. So a grand event was celebrated somewhere in the month of May and June, which was slowly disappeared, and people started forgetting about all, like as all other old things. We slowly we forget with the influence of modernization and changes, and you know that you all know it. So in 2016, this Sacha Anushthan was rediscovered, and we celebrated the Sacha Anushthan where almost 10,000 people have they participated of the entire district. And another aspect, another initiative which I would like to mention, very particularly concerning the hydro projects, both in Spiti, in Lahore, and further in Kinnaur. Uh, the the different kind of civil societies have come up, and they started making people, sensitizing people, and making them aware about the pros and cons of hydro projects. And in Lahore Valley especially, Jispa Sangharsh Samiti is one organization, one NGO, which could stop the one very huge project of this hydro projects for almost 10 years now. So there are different kind of initiatives. What I mean to say, right from the monasteries to the society, right from the culture, art, music, and the the recent or contemporary issues where people get together. And there was a wonderful initiative taken by the women of these areas. Not only then, in this case, I would mention that in majority of the different places of Himachal also, non-tribal areas also, where they came forward for against these, drugs, and against the use of liquor, and so many things. So there are a lot of things which we have been watching in the tribal societies, and but yes, that the tribal societies are at this point right now at the point of more challenges. I think that 2020 onwards would be becoming more challenging times for the tribal societies, as probably they have not imagined, or even if they look back and calculate or make a list of all the challenges which these societies have realized and seen. I am going to be very, with all conviction, I would say that the more challenges are yet to be washed or faced by these tribal societies. So more work has to be done within these societies. Thank you very much, Dr. Ajay.
Dr. Ajay, may I just say something, please?
Yeah, please go on.
Very briefly, I'm sorry to intervene in someone else's time. I just wanted to mention to you, when this uh, thing about culture, preserving culture and so forth. One of the traditions that we follow in Kinnaur is the celebration of Fulej. Fulej is फूलों का मेला समझ लो आप. This happens around the 4th of September. And should anybody wish to come to Kinnaur and interact with people, this is the best time, because Kinnoras, wherever they might be, this is the one time they all try and make it back to their villages. It is a huge deal. And so that what Fulaj does for me is that it keeps a link open and alive and very functional between Kinnoras and their roots. So irrespective of where a Kinnora might be, working or otherwise, will try and get back to his or her roots in the village at this time. This is just before the harvest starts. This is around the 4th of September every year. It's fixed. So that is one. The second is also, every village has a temple. And whenever there's renovation in the temple or a new structure is put up or whatever, उसकी प्रतिष्ठा होती है. उसकी प्रतिष्ठा के लिए उस गांव से जो लड़कियां ब्याह के दूसरे गांव में भी चली गई हैं या कहीं भी चली गई हैं, even they come back. So it's there are many things. I mean, just thinking of the top of my head, I could think of these two other very beautiful means of keeping tradition alive and keeping that link with the tradition alive. And also increasingly nuclear family का दौर चल रहा है. Most places nuclear होते जा रहे हैं. But in Kinnaur, we've been able to retain the joint family structure simply because Devta Sahab ke saath chal. There are many functions for which the head of household is required to be present and available at Devta's temple. If you have nuclear setups and you are in Australia, in America, or for that matter, even in Shimla, it is not always possible to go back to the village when the Devta demands that you be there. So that is also how the Devta ensures that family stay together. I mean, there are so many examples I could give you. I mean, just these are a couple of things I want to find. And I'm sure it's the same in Lahore and Spiti and everywhere else. Thank you for allowing me this time.
Thank you, Professor Negi. Well, this is another question that has come. I'll set some context. It is about languages, dialects, preservation of languages and dialects. So currently, this new education policy, it argues that, and it emphasizes on the need that the initial education, at least up to grade 5, it should be in mother tongue or the local or regional language. Now, have taken certain initiatives. If we look at in terms of like preserving the local dialects or languages or compiling a dictionary of the local languages in Himachal Pradesh. So how is that very important? And the context is that language is just not communicating the ideas. It's also about worldview. And if a language dies, the worldview dies. I mean, this is what I experienced in Nicobar. Devastated the problem. He couldn't say the problem. And now, if we look at the context, the Nicobaris of that area, they don't have any concept of problem. So that's why their own language, they don't have this idea of a problem. They don't have a word for rape. They don't have word for many other things which are so common to us. So when a language dies, it is a worldview that dies, right? So why is it so important that these local languages, these local dialects, they should be preserved? And and there are like two kind of arguments. One argument comes that if indigenous people, they are not exposed to modern education through English, so they would not climb up this ladder. So this is also that we experience like one critique that comes from the people, specifically that from the Dalit scholarship. They say that English is like a goddess to us, and it has helped us to move up the ladder, to climb that ladder. But then other, if we look at the anthropological evidence, if we look at the evidence that we have in front of us, it also says that language is not just about communication. This is a very political thing. It changes your worldview. It changes the way you think. So why is it so important to preserve languages and dialects? Professor Parshira, this is for you.
Right. Thank you, Professor Ajay. I think that tribe is the DNA of any civilization, any country, or any society, because why we are tribes? Because we have very less changed. We have very less modified or changed our indigenous ideas, religious practices, and different other things. So some of the times I feel that tribe is the origin of any civilization, any country. If you need to understand a country, so the roots of the country or the base of the country, go and interact with any of the tribe. Now the another thing which you have asked is about the dialects or the language. It is right that the tribe or any of the we have thousands of dialects and languages in our country. I don't say that only for the tribe, but there are in our state, for example, Himachal Pradesh. Almost every region or every district is having its own language. The problem is slowly the population which understands the language, number one. Number two, the population which understands and which can speak the language. And number three, the population which doesn't, that understand the language, or probably that it understands the language, but it cannot speak the language. That some segments can be made as long as the knowledge of language is concerned. The challenge is the moment we leave our place and go outside, we have nowadays it is decreasing because of the efforts of so many individuals and institutions or organizations. Otherwise, if I look back to the time when I was a student of college and probably of university also, and moving sometimes to the plains, Chandigarh, Delhi, Mumbai, Goa, or any of the place you can name, wheresoever I could find the opportunity to go and see and interact with the people. That shyness was there to telling them while interaction that I belong to a tribal place. A majority of the times we used to hide this information. Now it is this barrier is breaking. This fear is slowly decreasing. This is what I could see while interacting with the young students of today. But the difference is there. That generation from which I belong, we were more shy to tell our identity, but we used to be much more known to our culture, tradition, and language or dialect. Now, once we started interacting with the outer world, for the business and for the services and any kind of government employment or private employment, we shifted to the cities. Like every, that this is a story of every village and every villager, and Uttarakhand is a wonderful example of this. We started moving outside. We started living outside. Our children are going to convent schools. It's very, very good, very nice. They are interacting with the fellow students and friends, and slowly inside of the households in at our places, we earlier we moved from the local language to Hindi, and then we switched over from Hindi to English. So during this journey of switching over from your mother tongue to Hindi and to English, you started forgetting about your original language or your original dialect. And then once we started forgetting our original dialect, then if you ask to your children, those who are probably living in Mumbai or Delhi or Hyderabad or Bangalore, that now the summer vacations are, approaching, or maybe that I'm taking leave for 10 days or 15 days, let's go to our native place. So there is a hesitation among the young generation. They wanted to spend that holiday in some other place rather to come back to their roots. Once they reach to their roots, still the tribal areas, if you, I welcome you, all of you, those who are living outside of Himachal Pradesh, to come next year, visit Kinnaur or Bharmor or Pangi or Laul Spiti. And the moment you get down to any small place, we don't have huge markets. We have the small, that the places with 2, 3, 4, 5 shops. The moment you reach there, and if you're reaching there sometimes during, that 5 o'clock in the evening, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, where you find villagers have also assembled, and you notice that in which language they interact. 99% of the villagers would be interacting in their own dialect. This is the beauty of tribal areas. That's why I call it DNA of the entire civilization. 99% of the tribals, you will find that they are interacting in their own language. And out of the sudden, if some family of employees of the same village, if they also get down with you and they feel that they are strangers, they have become strangers. That's why I I have been insisting to all of the tribal, right now we are talking about tribal community and especially the community of my district. I have been insisting, I have been visiting the universities and colleges in different states of India where the Lahori and Spiti students are studying, and conducting small seminars and interacting with them and telling them, please speak in your own dialect, in your own language, because I'm extremely sure that the moment you forget your language, and then you, if you happen to reach back to your native place, you will feel that you are a outsider. And once you feel that you are an outsider, then you probably could not take place in any kind of cultural activity. Uh, folk songs, folk songs are the very strong, elements in our communities. And if you don't understand the dialect, you don't understand the folk songs. If you don't understand the folk songs, then you don't understand the stories. And couple of minutes ago, there was some reference. So I wanted to mention one thing. We have to create the heroism in tribal societies because there are less heroes in our societies. We have to find out the people, those who have, as Professor Apna Negi was mentioning, T.S. Negiji. So there are several other wonderful personalities in tribal societies, because now to strengthen the language, you need to strengthen your folk music. You need to create the heroism inside of your society. You need to motivate people to speak in your own language. So once we start, if we start talking about this language, probably that I need more time, which would be quite boring also at a certain moment of points. But I must conclude with this, that if we don't understand and speak our language, who else would speak our language? If someone says that I'm living in the metro cities, so if you are living in metro cities, for example, as per the 2011 census, we are only 32,000 people. The population of Laos Spiti is only 32,000 people, and there is not any that census or calculation is done. But it is my feeling or my observation that uh, 3 or 4 times more of this number is residing outside of Laos Spiti, outside of the district. So if you don't speak your own language, who else is you are expecting that would come and speak your dialect to protect it, to save it? Because everyone wants to go out. Everyone wants to go out. There are less people those who wish to stay inside of the place. But now I think that one positive sign which I'm watching or observing, because of this Atal Tunnel Rohtang, now more people would prefer to stay inside because the problem of accessibility is almost removed, is almost vanished. So this is how I could conclude with the appeal that you everyone of that in this webinar, those who are actively participating in this webinar, or those who are watching it, listening it from YouTube, the channel, every one of us must be having, definitely I feel, majority of us must be having our own dialect, which we speak inside of our houses. So kindly, if you are living outside of the, that your native places, at least try to make your children understand what your dialect is, at least. So if your children speak your dialect, your language, then you can be assured that you have done a wonderful responsibility. You have done a wonderful duty towards your society, that you are a proud father, you are a proud mother, that your children, even in living Hyderabad or Bangalore or any other place, they understand this language of Spiti or Kinnaur or Gati language or Gujar language or any language or Lahori language, Kinnauri language. So it is very, very important. I'm sorry that I took remarkably a long time than it was expected. Thank you, Dr. Ajay.
धन्यवाद प्रोफेसर चंद्र मोहन जी। डॉक्टर अजय किसी कारणवश अभी हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए नहीं हैं, और लेकिन मैं इस कार्यक्रम को अब आगे बढ़ाता हूं। आपने विस्तार से भाषाओं के महत्व की चर्चा की, और मुझे पूर्ण विश्वास है कि जो राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति, नई राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति में जिस तरह से हमने भाषाओं के ऊपर ध्यान देने की बात की है, निश्चित रूप से जब हमारी एजुकेशन सिस्टम में स्थानीय भाषाओं को स्थान मिलेगा, प्रारंभ में तो जो संविधान में हमारी भाषाएं उनको जो स्थान मिलेगा, तो उसका जो पूरा इम्पैक्ट है वो डायलेक्ट्स पर भी आएगा, और उनको भी एक सम्मान धीरे धीरे मिलना प्रारंभ होगा, ऐसी मेरी आशा है। और उन्नत भारत अभियान इस कार्यक्रम में भी, क्योंकि एक स्कूली एजुकेशन हमारा एक आयाम है, तो इस बारे में भी हम लोगों का एक चिंतन है, उसके ऊपर भी हम लोग आप लोगों से साथ मिलकर काम करते रहेंगे। अब मैं इस कार्यक्रम को अंतिम पड़ाव की तरफ ले चलता हूं, और प्रोफेसर संजीव शर्मा को मैं आमंत्रित करता हूं कि वो आज के हमारे वक्ताओं का जो हमें उद्बोधन प्राप्त हुआ उसका सार हम लोगों को बताएं, और इस कार्यक्रम में फिर आगे धन्यवाद ज्ञापन का एक हमारी जो परंपरा है उसको निभाएं। प्रोफेसर संजीव शर्मा।
Thank you very much, Professor Vivek. So we have come to the end of this very important webinar, which is on understanding various modes of tribal development, protecting their indigenous culture from external influence. So first of all, I would like to thank the National Coordinating Institute, IIT Delhi, for giving the opportunity to all of us. And I am from the both side. I am from the organizer side also, and I belong to the Brahmor area, I'm a Gati tribal. So like it's my responsibility, and it needs a very great honor to present from the both side also. And I will try to highlight some of the point which we have discussed and our eminent speaker have discussed during the last more than 2.5 hours. So we all know that over that time, the indigenous people around the world have preserved distinguished understanding rooted in culture experience that guides relation among human, non-human, and other than human beings in the specific ecosystem. And this tribal community or the indigenous people, they have a lot of contribution at the grassroots level or the society level. So when we were discussed about that to organize such seminar, and like there are some people behind the curtain like Sri Dinesh ji, Abhinav ji, and Vivekanand ji. So you know that all these three eminent speakers like Professor Parshira, Professor Aparna Negi, and Dr. Vishal Neharia, they are very renowned academicians in their field, in their academics. But you know that these are the people, those who are also representing their the specific tribe from that the community also, like Professor Prashira from Lowland Sapiti and the Aparna Negi from the Kinnor. So no, and Neharia from the Gadi community. So evenly, like they know the grassroots level, the knowledge, they have the experience, they was bought and the brought up for their the community. So that's why we thought that they are like the key or the eminent or the lead speaker, which may share their the personal experience, and we are highly benefited by their the presence also. And I will start with the session is start by Professor Vivek, and he highlighted that how Unnat Abhiyan is working in the different area, and how there are so many thousands of the institutions and the organization working on, and how they are working for to achieve the goal and the objective. Professor Priyanka has highlighted that how this networking is working in their area. Professor Parshira very briefly highlighted about the history of the Lowland Sapiti. Even many of the facts I knew the first time. Although I have visited, I have read some article from that area, and since I am working in the mountain area, so I got the opportunity to work in these all the area. And you know that Professor Parshira highlighted from there the tribal contribution from the ancient time, like more than 5,000 or the 6,000 year old. How this the trade was evenly, although you know that these are the area which we can say that the most of the time they were isolated from the other part of the country. Only 6 to 7 months these areas are the open, and you know that how much the life is difficult, how the people are living in these areas. But the salute to the people, those who are living in these areas, they have their the adaptation system, they have their the indigenous knowledge system. And I will always respect the people of these areas. They have that the scientific knowledge that how they want to survive in that area. Although there are the lacking of the infrastructure, the hospitals are not available, but they have the traditional system on that they are all dependent. What we are saying today that the Atam Nirbhar, they are Atam Nirbhar from the history time. They are from the Atam Nirbhar from the ancient time. As Professor Parasira highlighted, that although these mountains have long been like seen as the obstacle to movement, but we see that the history proves that they have the connectivity for their the trade, evenly for their economic purpose in the other area also. Professor Prashira also highlighted that the future challenges, although like due to construction of the Rohtang tunnel, there is the infrastructure development, the tourism possibility, but we need to come forward that how we can conserve our culture also. And I will try to link this with the Professor Aparna Negi's talk also, that she has highlighted that how these the sacred groups are working as the main practices for the biodiversity conservation. I did one project that the sacred groups in the Himalayan area, and we have documented more than 300 sacred groups in Kullu, in Kinnaur and the Laul Spiti area. And we have also comparatively analysis with the sacred groups area and the area which is not covered under the sacred groups area. So you know that these god and the goddess are the local institutions which are like working and which are mechanism for how we can maintain the environmental sustainability in that area. And you know, the tribal people in Himachal Pradesh area, they are the special category of economically backward. Because you know that the agriculture field are the very less, the per hectare, the land occupancy is less than the half hectare or the 1 hectare. So there is no other in the industry or the other area. So more dependency on is the natural. Since I belong to the Gadi tribal area and the Gadi, and you know that the livelihood for these area, only the rearing of the sheep and goat were the mainly the main source of that area. And there are some of the practices in these area, those who are working, like in the sacred area, there are some of the area which we can say that the dhar. Generally, we are the shepherd, they passes from the one region to the other area. They have the connectivity, Burma had connectivity with the other area. So evenly these are the area for the ecological conservation or the preservation. Evenly the people, they are not allowed to abuse in that area. People are not allowed to openly urine in that area. So like they have the different kind of the mechanism, the traditional mechanism. That's why these area are ecologically preserved. And you know that when we are talking about the culture or the tradition or the custom, and you know that all our culture, traditions, custom, they are directly linked with the nature, they are directly linked with the ecology of that area. So our first priority, if we are talking about that, we need to conserve or the preserve our the environment. We need to conserve our the culture first, our custom, our the future also, because we are directly linked with there. If there is something happen on that the particular environmental or ecology is degrading that area, it directly degraded our culture also. So as discussed, Dr. Aparna and Dr. Vishal Nehria and Parshira also, that there are some of the development activity due to there is some impact. So this is from the both side also. The people are migrated for in search of the employment for the other area also, and the people also coming for the employment in that particular area also. And due to their in-migration and the order migration, there is a pressure on the culture also. And due to this, the pressure on the culture, there is the imbalance and the instability among that the ecology or the culture also. And the speaker have also highlighted, and during this the discussion time, that the corona issue in that tribal area, which Dr. Vishal Nehria has highlighted, that due to humanity is the main thing, which is like they have defeated the corona in that area. So you know that this is only due to their the traditional food habit, and they're like how they are working in that area. So this is also very, very important. And I want to try to highlight one thing here, and I want to quote quotation here, that a pessimist complained about the wind and optimist try to change it, and a leader adjust the sail. And you know that the tribal community, they are not complaining about these issue, they try to adapt with them, and they try to come up with the solution also. And as a scientist, as an academician, like we need not to treat the tribal community or the indigenous community either in the Himachal area or the other area. We need not to treat as a guinea pig for the experimental side, or they are not the topic for the research, they are not topic for the publication. But as Professor Aparna is clearly highlighted, that the participation is very, very important, their involvement is very, very important. The one cannot go there directly to implement some developmental activity or implement some infrastructure project there. We need to collaborate with the local community, that what is their perception, how they want to perceive all these. So their involvement, their participation, because they are the custodian and they are the owner of these area. So their expectation is very, very important, how they are expected these developmental activity. So I would also try to highlight the one case study from the Brahmor area, which we have just received 2 or 3 months ago. Then there is a remigration from the urban area to the rural area. And you know that in Himachal, there is no possibility of the employment opportunity in other area. So there is a one place, Brahmani Mata, and Brahmani Mata, basically the name of the Brahmor comes from that, the Brahmani only. So there is a one place in the Brahmani, in the Brahmor area. So on that area, there is a land which was barren from the last 13 to 40 years. When the youth comes, they decided that they have no opportunity for the employment. Then the group of the youth, there is a one Sibhumi Seva Dal group is there. Then they decided that they need to cultivate that barren land. And what they did, that on the basis of the lease, they hired that the 10 bigha of land. They cultivate that land which was barren from the last 30 to 40 years. And you know that within 3 months, they cultivated a organic vegetable. They sold all vegetable in the market. Even they have the demand from out of the Tehsil also. So there are the some of the example which we can see that how these the youth and how they are coming through our the folk custom to conservation of their. So there are the so many other case study. Although we need the development in this area, but we are not like we cannot say that we need the development like that you can see that the how this Ravi Valley or the Satluj Valley, they are totally diverted due to this different hydropower project in that area. Or as per there is a one in 2011 one High Court committee was constituted by under the chairmanship of Abhay Shukla. And the committee highlighted that this river Ravi, which was flowing in the 70 km, now that Ravi is flowing only 7 to 8 km in the natural flow. The other river may be converted into the tunnel. So how much that impact? So it may be tried to link that the participation and the involvement of the local community is very, very important. So that we can promote these all the indigenous knowledge system, they can preserve the culture also, and their role as a scientist, because they are the actual scientists, they know everything. Even that if you go in these area, because I have the experience to cross some of the passes from Dharmshala side to even in the Kinnaur area, in the Lahore area, the name of the passes is on the name of these the shepherd. And that the people even right now also, the people, the shepherd, they will cross the pass, then other people will cross the pass. And they have the mechanism system then when they will cross the pass. Like after every, they wait, even if they have the knowledge about the weather condition. They are traditionally, they have the knowledge that how they are predicting that the knowledge. So I will not go in detail. Many of the things were already discussed. So I will like to propose a vote of thanks directly. So first of all, it's my the privilege, and I will try to thanks the three eminent speaker, Professor Chandramohan Parashira, Professor Aparna Negi, and Dr. Vishal Nehria, for accepting our invitation and sparing your valuable time. Even Professor Aparna Negi was suffered from the COVID, but ma'am, you spare your valuable time and you come and you share your experience. So thank you very, very much. Emily, due to this, your talk was very, very it's very encouraging to all the youth, and it's very it's a source of inspiration to all of us. So thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Dr. Vishal, for your this the innovative contribution, because you are the real those who have the academically, and you are from this the grassroots level. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your the support, and we will also expect your support in the future also in this the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan or other initiative also. I would like to thank my special thanks to the coordinator of this National Coordinating Institute, IIT Delhi, Professor Vijay, Professor Vivek, who provide us one opportunity to one platform. Sometimes I want to say that there are so many hidden voices in the mountain and the tribal area, but you have provided one platform to share our hidden voices. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for organizing and giving us the opportunity. I would also like to thank Professor Ajay Saini for moderating the session and the full session also. I would like to thank Professor Priyanka also. And that there are the many people, those behind the curtain, and those who are organizing with the continuously in touch with the speaker and the other organizer and the participant also. So I would like to thank Professor Meeta and Professor Manujit and they're all the team. Thank you very, very much. My special thanks, और मैं धन्यवाद करना चाहूंगा सबसे अधिक जो इनके सूत्रधार हैं और जिनके ये डिस्कशन से सिलेक्शन ऑफ स्पीकर और सिलेक्शन ऑफ ये सारा कुछ करने के लिए मैं धन्यवाद करना चाहूंगा अपने श्री दिनेश जी का, जो हमारे मार्गदर्शक के रूप में, हमारे प्रेरक के रूप में काम करते हैं. आई वुड लाइक टू थैंक अभिनव जी, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. आपने जो इस सारा जितना भी था इसको संजोया और आज इसके साथ पेश किया है. So thank you very much, Abhinav ji, all the team. I would like to thank especially Professor D.D. Sharma from HP University, who linked me, Professor Arparna Negi and Professor Parashira also. So I would like to thank, because that is my center. I did my all education from there. So if I forget some of the names, so I thank you very much. Or in these bird, I will try to highlight some of the lines from Ramdhari Singh Dinkar, because this is our responsibility to come forward. So there is no work is difficult. So we need to come forward, and it's our responsibility. And with these words, my vote of thanks will be concluded. So रामधारी सिंह दिनकर की कुछ पंक्तियां मैं पढ़ना चाहूंगा। है कौन बिगन ऐसा जग में टिक सके आदमी के मग में, है कौन बिगन ऐसा जग में टिक सके आदमी के मग में। खम ठोक ठेलता है जब नर, खम ठोक ठेलता है जब नर, पर्वत के जाते पांव उखड़। मानव जब जोर लगाता है पत्थर भी पानी बन जाता है, मानव जब जोर लगाता है पत्थर भी पानी पर जाता है। So we need to come forward for the conservation, preservation, and all these issues which we have highlighted today to come forward, and we will like to contribute in this area. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, organizer, and thanks again all our eminent speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjeev ji.
सभी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। नमस्कार।
नमस्कार। नमस्कार।